The hiss of the rain against the glass of the Moonbridge Diner was the soundtrack to my life. Early February in North Halstead, the kind of wet cold that gets into your bones and stays there. It was just past 11 at night, and I was juggling 4 tables. Table 2 wanted more coffee. Table 3, a couple of students, were splitting a $9 check 3 ways, complete with a calculator. Table 4 was empty, sticky with syrup, and my phone, wedged between my ribs and my apron, was vibrating against my hip. I glanced at the screen. Law offices of Cook County. My stomach turned to ice. "Just a sec," I muttered to the students, flashing a smile that felt like cracking plaster. I grabbed the coffee pot, hit table 2, and ducked behind the counter, pressing the phone to my ear with my shoulder. "This is Lena Park." "Miss Park, it's Mr. Davies. About Ethan. He sounded tired, more tired than me, which was saying something. The prelim hearing didn't go well. They're talking about moving him to the North Lake Prosecutorial Unit." I stopped breathing. North Lake. That's where they sent kids they wanted to forget about. What does that mean? It means they're trying to leverage him. They mentioned indefinite temporal detainment pending the investigation. Indefinite. The word echoed in the hiss of the coffee machine. It meant forever. My hand, the one holding the pot, started to shake. I quickly put it down, gripping the stainless steel counter. "Lena Table." To Greg, my manager, barked. "Miss Park, are you there?" "They're saying he's a high risk." The bell over the diner door jingled, a sharp, cold sound cutting through the haze. A blast of wet air hit the back of my neck. 3 men. They didn't belong. Not here. Not at this hour. Our usual crowd was truckers finishing a run or college kids fueled by caffeine. These men were quiet. They wore dark, tailored coats that probably cost more than my apartment. They moved like shadows, their footsteps silent on the checkerboard tile. The one in the lead, I knew his face. Everyone on this block knew his face, even if they pretended not to. Cassian Morrow. They don't call him a businessman. They call him the owner of the sounds after midnight. It's the kind of joke that makes your stomach tighten. He didn't look around. He just moved to the corner booth, the one under the flickering neon sign, and slid in. His 2 companions sat opposite him, their backs to the room, facing him, an audience. "Lena, I need a decision on this, mister," Davies said in my ear. "Do we fight this, or do we try to—" "I have to go," I whispered, panic clawing at my throat. "I'll call you back." I hung up before he could answer. I grabbed my notepad, my pen, and walked over. My shoes squeaked. Cassian Morrow looked up. His eyes weren't just dark, they were still. They took me in. Not like men usually looked at me, not assessing, not undressing. It was analytical. Like he was reading a balance sheet. I felt like he was counting my breaths, noting the cheap fabric of my uniform, the way my knuckles were white on the notepad. He saw the tremor in my hand. I knew he did. I slid that hand into my apron pocket. "What can I get you?" "Santo Noir, black." His voice was low, a rumble, not loud, but it cut through the clatter of plates from the kitchen. "Just the one." He nodded. His men said nothing. I went to the machine. Our coffee is sludge, but the Santo Noir is the one decent thing we have. Imported. Costs $1 extra. I poured it, my hand steadier now. As I walked back, the overhead lights buzzed and flickered. Zit-pop. The ancient POS screen on the counter, the touchscreen computer where we punch in orders, went black. Then, with a digital sigh, it rebooted. "Damn it," I muttered. That was the 3rd time this week. Greg would yell about the lost tickets. I placed the coffee in front of Morrow, and he was watching me, not the cup. I quickly tried to input the Santo Noir order into the slowly rebooting POS. It was frozen. I'll bring your check when the system's back up," I said. He just nodded, once, and lifted the cup. I turned to deal with the students. As I was splitting their check, a new voice, thick and slurring, broke the quiet. Hey, waitress." I turned. A guy at the counter, drunk since 10 p.m., was waving his empty glass. He'd been quiet all night. "You forgot my fries, and I need another drink. Sweet thing." "The kitchen's closed, sir. and I think you've had enough." He slid off the stool, unsteadily. He was big, smelled like stale beer and wet wool. "I'll tell you when I've had enough." He reached out, fast, and grabbed my wrist. His grip was hot and tight. "Come on, just one more, and give us a smile." My skin crawled. I tried to pull my arm away, my voice stuck. "Let go of me." I looked at Greg. He was behind the counter, polishing a glass with sudden, intense focus, his eyes glued to the floor. Useless. The diner had gone silent. The only sound was the rain. I looked at the corner booth. Cassian Morrow was watching. He wasn't looking at the drunk. He was looking at me, my trapped wrist, my manager's cowardice. He didn't sigh. He didn't move. Really, he just lifted his chin, a fraction of an inch, and gave the smallest nod to the man sitting on his left. It happened so fast. The two men with Morrow were on their feet. They hadn't made a sound. One of them clapped the drunk on the shoulder. A heavy, solid sound. "Friend," the man said, his voice weirdly pleasant. "You look like you need some fresh air." "The hell And maybe the restroom." The other one added, already on the drunk's other side. They weren't asking. They weren't threatening. They were just stating facts. They lifted, and the drunk's feet left the floor for a second. He tried to protest, but the words died. They weren't bouncers pushing him. They were escorts. They guided him, half walking, half carrying, to the side door. "Let's go clean up," one of them murmured. The side door opened, letting in the sound of the downpour for a second, and then closed. The diner was quiet again. Greg was still polishing the same glass. The students were pale. I stood there, rubbing my wrist, my heart hammering. Cassian Morrow watched me for another beat. Then he stood, pulling a few bills from his pocket. He adjusted the cuffs of his shirt. He walked to the register, where I was standing, and placed the money down. I looked. It wasn't money. It was a card, blank, heavy white cardstock. In the center, embossed in sharp, clear lines, was the number 11. Beneath it, a symbol, 3 dots in a triangle. He hadn't left a tip. He paused, close enough for me to smell the cold rain on his coat. "Sometimes," he said, his voice just for me, "the most valuable thing isn't money." Then he and his men were gone. The bell jingled. The diner felt empty. It wasn't until 2 a.m., after mopping the floors and wiping every sticky table, that I did the reconciliation. I balanced the register, my mind already on the bus ride home, on the call I had to make to Mr. Davies. My stomach dropped. I was short, $12.50. I ran the tapes again, and again I checked every slip. Table 2's coffee, Table 3's split check. Then I realized, the POS reboot. Cassian Morrow's Santo Noir. It never went through. When the system came back up, I'd forgotten to re-enter it. The check I'd dropped on his table, the one I thought he'd paid, must have been blank. Shit! That was half my shift's tips. I pulled a 10 and 3 ones from my jar, my hand shaking with anger now, not fear, and shoved them in the register to make it even. Greg just grunted, not looking up from his paperwork. The bus was late. 20 minutes. I stood under the sputtering yellow light of the bus stop, the awning dripping water down my back. The wind was brutal, cutting right through my thin jacket. I huddled into myself, thinking about Ethan, indefinite. How was I going to fix this? I felt the tear in my uniform shirt, right by the shoulder. Pulling. I'd used a safety pin to hold it closed. The metal was ice cold against my skin. I was so tired. I felt like I could just lie down on the wet pavement and sleep for a year. The phone rang at 8 a.m. It yanked me out of a gray, restless sleep. Mr. Davies. My hand fumbled for the phone. "Yeah." "Lena." He sounded awake, alert, baffled. I don't know what happened. I've never seen anything like this in my entire career. I sat bolt upright, the blanket falling away. What's wrong? Nothing. That's the point. I got a call an hour ago. The office is dropping the charges. The room was silent. I could only hear my own blood roaring in my ears. What do you mean, dropping? All of them, gone. Wiped. They cited significant procedural issues. Ethan's being processed out of county right now. He'll be home in an hour. I just stared at the peeling paint on my wall. Procedural issues. I'm not going to question it, kid. Take the win. He's out. He hung up. I sat there. The neighborhood was already buzzing by 9. Kids don't just walk from Northlake, not for procedural issues, not Ethan. My apron from last night was slumped over the back of a chair. The card. I fished it out, the heavy white stock, the embossed 11, and it felt warm. I turned it over. The back wasn't blank anymore. Faint gray numbers, like they were printed in ash or smoke. A knock-on had appeared, a phone number. I stared at it, my heart climbing into my throat. As I watched, the numbers began to fade, slowly but visibly, like ink dissolving in water. I watched for maybe 10 seconds, then 20. I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling. Should I call? What would I say? Thank you for breaking my brother out of a legal black hole. By the time I'd unlocked my phone, 60 seconds had passed. The back of the card was blank white paper again. I slumped back onto the mattress, my head spinning. Later that night at the diner, the kitchen was alive with rumors. It had nothing to do with Ethan, which was a relief. It was bigger. The BIFE, the Bureau of Inner-City Finance Enforcement. The feds who only care about money had raided some high-tech data warehouse over by the canals. They say they were moving crypto. Sal, our line cook, said flipping a burger, billions. I heard it was the Ivory Serpents. Tina, the other night shift waitress, whispered to me, her eyes wide. Heard they lost everything. Ivory Serpents. I'd heard the name. You don't work in this neighborhood and not hear it. At the end of my shift, as I was clocking out, Greg handed me a plain white envelope. This was dropped off for you about an hour ago. My name, Lena, was typed on the front. I took it to the locker room. My fingers felt thick inside. There was no letter. It was a photograph, a simple 4x6 color photo. It was Ethan, squinting in the daylight, walking out of the gates of the North Lake Detention Center. He looked thin, tired, but he was free. Tucked behind the photo was a small, stiff piece of paper, like the kind from an old typewriter. One sentence. Your brother isn't leverage. A week went by. Ethan was home. He was quiet, sleeping on my couch, eating everything in the fridge. He didn't know why he was free. I didn't tell him about the man who didn't pay for his coffee. The rain hadn't stopped. It was Friday again, midnight. The diner was almost empty. The bell jingled. The air in the room changed. It snapped tight like a guitar string. Cash in Morrow. He was alone this time. He didn't look at me as he crossed the floor. He just slid into the same booth, the one under the flickering neon. I picked up a notepad. My hands weren't shaking this time. I walked over. He looked up at me. That same still gaze, analytical. But there was something else in it now. A question. The usual, I asked. A corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile. No. Tonight, I want the porterhouse. Medium rare. That was the most expensive thing on the menu. $46. I just nodded, my pen hovering over the pad, ready to write it down. And, Lena, he said, his voice quiet, but it seemed to swallow every other sound in the room. I looked up. Don't charge me. I didn't put the $46 steak into the PO. I just nodded, wrote it on my pad, and tore the sheet off. I went to the kitchen, spiked the order, and leaned against the stainless steel counter. Sal, the cook, raised an eyebrow. Big spender in the corner. You have no idea, I muttered. I brought him the steak 15 minutes later. He ate. He didn't rush. He didn't savor. He just consumed. When he was done, he placed his knife and fork together on the plate. He looked up. I was already there, holding the coffee pot. Nothing else, I asked? No. He stood, put on his coat. He walked past me, past the register, and out the door. The bell jingled. He hadn't left a card. He hadn't left anything. I was $46 short that night. I didn't care. I pulled two 20s, a 5, and a 1 from my tip jar and made the register even. Greg grunted. I went home. I didn't sleep. The photograph of Ethan walking free was on my nightstand, next to the heavy white card with the number 11 and the 3 dots. Your brother isn't leverage. Don't charge me. He wasn't charging me for the steak. He was telling me what the first payment was. The coffee was a gift. The steak was the interest. My brother's freedom, that was the principal. And the debt was all mine. I couldn't live with that. I couldn't be the woman whose brother was walking around on the street because a quiet man in a dark coat made a phone call. I knew the building. Everyone in the neighborhood did. It was an old 1930s office tower on the edge of the district, empty for at least a decade. It had a big, gaudy 11 carved into the limestone above the revolving doors. I put the card in my pocket, pulled on my coat, and left Ethan sleeping on the couch. It was 10 a.m. The lobby was derelict. Dust cloths covered what looked like old velvet furniture. The air was cold, smelling of plaster and dead air. But the elevator at the far end had a polished brass panel. The up button was lit, pulsing faintly. I stepped in. There were no floor buttons, just a single unlabeled circle. I pressed it. The elevator didn't rattle. It rose in perfect oily silence. It was the quietest place I'd been in my life. It stopped gently, and the doors slid open. It wasn't an office. It was a greenhouse. The entire floor had been gutted. The ceiling was a web of steel and glass, and the gray, February light poured in, diffused and soft. It was warm. Plants were everywhere. Not decorative ferns, but serious. Working plants, rows of tomatoes, basil, rosemary, things I couldn't name. And in the center, a simple, low table and 2 cushions. Cassian Morrow was kneeling at the table, his back to me. He was pouring hot water from a black kettle into a small clay pot. You were short $46 last night, he said, not turning. You should have let the register be short. It's not your diner. It's my job. He turned. He wasn't wearing his coat. Just a simple gray shirt, the sleeves rolled up. He looked younger. It's a badly paid job in a failing business. How did you know about Ethan? I demanded. My voice was tight. Who did you call? He motioned to the cushion opposite him. Sit. Tea. I don't want tea. I want to know. I don't fix mistakes with money, Lena, he said, pouring the tea. It smelled like smoke and herbs. Money is a symptom. I fix the structure that caused the mistake. My brother wasn't a mistake, and he was set up. He was. Cashin agreed. He pushed the cup toward me. He was a piece of leverage, used by people to meet a quarterly quota, a structural problem. So I applied pressure to a different part of the structure. The machine is broken. I just calibrated it. I stared at him. That's a very clean way of saying you threatened a prosecutor. He didn't confirm or deny. He just sipped his tea. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the hydroponic pumps. Why me? Why my brother? Because I was there 3 months ago, he said. I frowned. What? The outlet by the jukebox, the one Greg keeps plugging the neon sign into, even though the wiring is from 1950. I remembered a Tuesday, the smell of burning plastic, a pop, and then bright orange flames licked up the wall. A grease fire, Cassian said, his voice a low monotone. Greg, your manager, started flapping his hands and yelling. The 2 students in booth 3 tried to run over the counter. The trucker at the bar just froze. Chaos. He looked at me, and his eyes were sharp. You didn't scream. You grabbed the extinguisher from under the sink, but you didn't spray it. Not first. You walked past the fire, unplugged the jukebox to kill the circuit, and then you put out the flames. You created an exit path. You told the trucker to get up and get out, and you told Greg to shut up and call 911. In that order. He leaned forward. Your survival instinct calibrates chaos. That's rare. Most people just add to it. I didn't know what to say. He had been there. He had watched. I need that, he said. Need what? A waitress who knows how to use a fire extinguisher. I need someone who doesn't panic. Someone who sees the real problem, not the flames. He stood up and walked to the wall of glass, looking down at the wet street, 11 floors below. There is a charity gala in 2 weeks. Solace for tomorrow. It's being held at the Viridian Crown Hotel. It's a room full of very wealthy, very quiet people, the kind of people who own the structures. My people will be handling the security, but I need someone on the inside. You need a spy. I need a waitress, he corrected me. I need someone to carry a tray, smile and watch. I need your eyes. I need you to see who is talking to who looks nervous, who leaves a room when someone else enters. I need you to see the fire before the smoke. And in return, I asked, my voice hard, does this clear my brother's debt? This clears it, as he said, and it pays $5,000 for one night. $5,000. That was 3 months' rent. That was enough to get Ethan into a community college course. What are the rules? He turned to face me. You don't ask me what I do. You don't ask who the guests are. And you never, ever repeat anything you hear inside that ballroom. Not to your brother. Not to your friends. Not to yourself. I stood up. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear. From anger. This was how it happened. This was how they pulled you in. A favor you can't refuse. Then a job you can't say no to. But he was right. I was trapped. And the only way to find out who put Ethan in that cell was to walk deeper into the cage. I'll do it, I said, but I'm not one of your men. I'm not your property. I don't want to own you, Lena R., he said, walking me back to the elevator. I want to aim you. He handed me a new card. This one had a number on it. My personal line. Memorize it, never write it down. He drove me home, not in a flashy limo, but a black sedan that looked like every other car on the street, only cleaner. The engine was silent. The rain tapped on the roof. I noticed the truck after 3 blocks. White. A beat-up Ford pickup. It had been 2 cars behind us. Now it was 1. It switched lanes when we did. My heart started to thud. I looked in the side mirror. The driver was a shadow. He's been there since we left the tower, I said. Cassian didn't even turn his head. He didn't check his mirror. He just seemed to know. Yes. He kept driving, same speed. He wasn't trying to lose him. As we approached the intersection at Halstead, he lifted his right hand. He tapped the passenger side window 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. A slow, steady rhythm. The light turned green. We drove through. I looked back. The white truck, which had been right on our tail, suddenly wrenched its wheel, cut across 2 lanes of traffic, and made a hard, screeching right turn, disappearing down a side street. Horns blared. He was just gone. How? I whispered. Everyone is listening. Lena, he said, his eyes on the road. Not everyone is patient. I should have been terrified. My hands should have been shaking. But the silence in the car was a wall around me. For the first time since Ethan was arrested. My shoulders weren't up by my ears. I felt insulated. That scared me more than the truck. He dropped me at the corner. I'll be in touch about the gala. Then he was gone. Safety was an illusion. It shattered at 10 p.m. that night. I was getting ready for my shift, and my phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize. It was a text, just an image, a photo of the Moonbridge Diner. But the angle was wrong. It was from high up, from the roof of the building across the street. A second text came through. Drop the gala if you want to keep working. My blood ran cold. They were watching the diner. They were watching me. I was furious. This was what he'd brought to my door. I was about to dial the number he gave me, the one I'd memorized, and tell him I was out. Then I saw the note on the kitchen counter. It was a scrap of paper from Ethan's notebook, his lazy, left-handed scrawl. Sis, some guy in the lobby told me not to go out on the balcony, said the railing is loose. I walked slowly to the balcony door. We were on the 4th floor. I looked at the railing. It was solid steel, set in concrete. It wasn't loose. There was no guy in the lobby of our building. They were watching my home. The choice was gone. This wasn't a job anymore. It was the only door out. I called him. He picked up on the first ring. No hello. They're watching my apartment, I said, and the diner. "Stay inside," he said. "Don't go to your shift." He was there in 15 minutes. He met me in the hallway. He didn't look angry. He looked calculated. He handed me a small, black bracelet. It was made of a matte, rubber-like material, no screen, no logo. "What is this?" "It's not jewelry," he said, taking my wrist. His fingers were cold, his grip firm. He fastened it. "It's equipment, a static pulse generator. It floods the immediate area with garbage data. Anyone using cheap trackers, cell phone pings, audio surveillance. All they'll get is noise. It's not perfect, but it will blind them for a while." It felt heavy on my skin, a chain. "I don't want your gifts." "It's not a gift," he said, his voice flat. "It's a uniform." He let go of my wrist. "The gala is on. I'll send the details. Don't leave your apartment until then. I'll have supplies sent." I felt the crushing weight of the debt settle on my shoulders. The next day, Tina called me, frantic. "Lena, where are you? Greg is pissed." "I'm sick. Tina, just tell him I'm sick." "Is it about that guy? The one from the other night?" she whispered. "Lena, be careful. Sal was saying that Bife raid it was the Ivory Serpents, and they are not happy." "What does that have to do with me?" "I don't know, but they say the Serpents are run by this woman, Vera Kincaid. They say she has platinum blonde hair, like white, and she's not normal. They say when someone crosses her, she finds the one thing they love most in the world, and she breaks it, right in front of them." My hand went to the bracelet on my wrist. I looked at Ethan, who was playing a video game, oblivious. That night, I couldn't sleep. I was pacing the small living room. Ethan was on the couch, dead to the world. I went to the front door to check the deadbolt for the 10th time. I stopped. On the threadbare welcome mat, half smeared, was a boot print. It wasn't mine. It wasn't Ethan's. It was a deep tread work boot, caked in a grayish, industrial mud I'd never seen, and it was right by the lock. I bent closer. My breath fogged the air. Around the keyhole, on the cheap brass, were tiny, fresh, silver scratches. Someone had tried to pick my lock. I backed away, my hand over my mouth. I fumbled for my phone and dialed his number. One ring. "Where?" His voice was gravel. "My apartment, the lock, they were here." The line clicked dead. I stood with my back against the wall, my eyes on the door, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. I didn't know if I should wake Ethan. I didn't know anything. I just counted. 4 minutes, 5, 7. At exactly 8 minutes, there was a knock. Not a normal knock. It was the rhythm from the car. Tap, tap, tap. I looked through the peephole. Cassian, he was alone. But as I opened the door, the two men from the diner stepped out of the shadows of the stairwell. They were in dark work clothes. One carried a heavy-duty tool bag. "Go sit with your brother," Cassian said. He didn't come in. He knelt, examining the lock, his fingers tracing the scratches. "Don't let him come to the door." I did as I was told. I sat on the edge of the coffee table, watching Ethan play his game. I could hear the quiet, efficient sounds from the hall, the whir of a high-torque drill, the snick of metal, the low murmur of voices. 10 minutes later, another knock, the same rhythm. I opened it. The old lock was gone. In its place was a heavy-duty steel plate and a deadbolt that looked like it belonged on a bank vault. "They won't try the door again," Cassian said. He looked past me, up toward the ceiling. "They'll try the roof." He turned and left. His men were already gone. I didn't sleep. How could I? I sat in the dark living room, the black bracelet cold on my wrist, and listened. At 3:07 a.m., I heard it. A soft scrape, on the roof, right above my bedroom, the sound of something being dragged. My whole body went rigid. Then my bracelet buzzed. Just once, a short, sharp vibration against my skin. I held my breath. The scraping on the roof stopped. There was a faint, metallic clink. Then a frantic, high-pitched whine that abruptly cut off. Silence. My phone screen lit up the dark room, a new text from Cassian. It was a picture, taken in near darkness, A small, black drone, the size of my hand, was tangled in a web of razor wire that hadn't been there yesterday. It was dangling from the gutter. One of its propellers shattered. A second text came through, just 2 words. They're underfunded. The next day, he came to get me. A walkthrough for the gala. We rode the elevator down from my apartment, just the 2 of us. The fluorescent light hummed. He stood closer than he had to. I could smell the ozone from his coat and that same faint, clean scent of herbs from his greenhouse. I tried to focus on the numbers lighting up. 3-2. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. The elevator stopped. The doors slid open with a sigh. He didn't move. He just looked at me. "Do you trust me yet?" His voice was too quiet for the small space. I looked past him, at the glowing green exit sign at the far end of the drab hallway. "I trust the fire escape map," I said. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "Good. So do I." The Viridian Crown Hotel wasn't just expensive. It was a different atmosphere. The air smelled like champagne and roses and money so old it had turned to dust. The light wasn't light. It was crystal, fractured into 1,000 pieces, falling like rain from chandeliers that looked heavier than my apartment building. A box had arrived at my door 2 days ago. No note, just a dress, wrapped in tissue paper. It was a slip dress, simple silk, and the color of a deep forest. The note was unspoken. "This is your new uniform." I'd pulled my hair back into a low, tight knot. No makeup, except for something to hide the dark circles under my eyes. My lips were bare. Cassian's instructions, delivered via a 1-word text blend. "Red lipstick doesn't blend." I was carrying a silver tray of champagne flutes when I saw him. He didn't just enter a room, he absorbed it. He was in a tuxedo that fit him like a second skin. He wasn't the man from the diner or the greenhouse. He was this man, and he belonged here more than anyone. With him was an older man, sharp and silver-haired, with the posture of a hawk. Orion Lestrade, Cassian's legal counsel, a name I'd heard whispered with the same mix of fear and respect as Cassian's. "The installation is derivative," I heard Cassian murmur to him, gesturing at a sculpture of twisted metal. "He's just copying Paik." "But he's the right kind of derivative, Cassian," Orion replied, smiling faintly. They were talking about art, but their eyes weren't on the sculpture. They were moving, scanning. Cassian's gaze swept the room in a calm, methodical pattern. He clocked the main entrance, the 2 staff doors behind the bar, and the wide terrace exit. He was mapping his fire escapes. Then the air near the entrance seemed to get colder. A woman moved through the crowd, and the crowd parted for her. She was wearing a dress of stark, shimmering white. It looked like it was woven from salt. Her hair was platinum blonde, almost white, pulled back so tightly it looked painful. Vera Kincaid. Tina's warning flashed in my mind. She finds the one thing you love most, and she breaks it. She saw Cassian and smiled, but her eyes, the color of a winter sky, slid right past him and landed on me. She glided over, a champagne flute in her hand, moving like a shark. She stopped right in front of my tray. She didn't look at the champagne. She looked at me. "Well, well," she said. Her voice was like ice cubes rattling in a glass. "The little girl who forgot the check." My face burned. I felt every eye in a 10-foot radius turn to me. The waitress, the help. Before I could say anything, Cassian stepped half an inch in front of me. It was barely a movement, but it was a wall. He smiled at her, a smile that didn't touch his eyes. "I paid, Vera," he said, his voice quiet. "I just paid with structural impact. You should try it sometime." Her smile tightened. "Impact? Is that what you call it?" She laughed, a brittle, sharp sound. "Speaking of payments and pretty things," she tapped her glass with a long, white fingernail. A man on a small stage at the far end of the room, an auctioneer, suddenly raised his voice. "And now, a surprise addition," he announced. A spotlight hit a painting on an easel. My stomach hollowed out. It was a painting of a bridge at midnight, dark, swirling water beneath it. It was ugly, and it was terrifying. A lovely piece, depicting the solace of the Chicago night, Vera said, loud enough for those around us to hear, but her eyes were locked on me. Shall we start the bidding at, say, one brother's freedom? My hand was shaking. I saw it as if it belonged to someone else. The silver tray tilted, the champagne flutes, delicate and thin-stemmed, began to slide. I gasped, trying to write it, but it was too late. They were going to shatter. A man next to me, with slicked-back hair and a watch that glittered with diamonds, reached out to steady one of the glasses. Then Cashin's hand was there. He wasn't there a second ago. He was beside me. His left hand covered the man's hand, his fingers strong and sure, steadying the tilting flute. His other hand was under my tray, leveling it in an instant. Not a single drop was spilled. "Careful," Cassian said, his voice calm. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the slick-haired man. Slippery floors. The man laughed, relieved, and took the glass. "Good save. Thanks." He raised the glass to Cassian and walked away, sipping it. Cassian turned to me. "Breathe," he murmured. He discreetly pulled a linen napkin from his pocket and wiped his own fingertips. I watched him. My heart was hammering. He hadn't saved the drink. He hadn't saved me the embarrassment. He had seen the man touch the glass. His hand had covered the man's. Not to steady it, but to touch it, to feel where the man's fingers had been. He wanted the man's fingerprints. As the slick-haired man joined a group by the window, Cassian just nodded. Once, to Orion. The lawyer's eyes followed the man, and he made a note in a small, leather-bound book, a data broker. I tried to get my breathing under control. I scanned the room, trying to be what he wanted me to be. Camouflage. Eyes. I saw her then, a woman who didn't fit. She was in a dark pantsuit, her shoes practical, her hair in a no-nonsense bun. She was standing near the terrace, watching everyone, her expression bored and predatory. Agent Naira Sloan, the Bife agent, the one who wasn't a savior, just a different kind of shark, hunting in the same water. I caught Cassian's eye across the ballroom, and he was trapped in a conversation with a senator. He made a tiny motion with his head, a fractional tilt toward a side door marked staff only. He wanted me to take a break. He wanted me to move. I slipped through the door. It led to a narrow, concrete stairwell. I went up 2 flights, the sound of the party fading. I pushed open a heavy metal door and stepped out onto the roof. The cold air was a slap in the face. It was glorious. Chicago was spread out below us, a carpet of glittering lights, but the roof wasn't empty. It was a garden. Dozens of huge, galvanized steel planters were arranged in rows, filled with dark earth. I could smell wet dirt and thyme. He was already there, standing by the ledge, his back to me. He'd taken off his tuxedo jacket. How had he gotten here so fast? He turned as I approached. "You're shivering," he said. I hadn't even noticed. He stepped forward and draped his jacket over my shoulders. It was impossibly heavy, lined with silk, and smelled of him, that clean, sharp, herbal scent from the greenhouse, mixed with expensive wool in the cold night. "How is Ethan?" he asked. The question was so normal. It was jarring. "He's okay, he's quiet, he's eating." "Is he sleeping?" "Not really," I admitted. "He has nightmares." "About what?" "The dark, the sound of the locks. He said they clanged." Cassian nodded, looking out at the city. "He's mapping the trauma. He'll build new paths around it. He's resilient." He wasn't just asking how my brother was. He was asking about the damage. He was checking the neural map for fractures. He was calculating the cost. The wind was sharp, whipping a few strands of hair from my bun. He stepped closer, partially blocking the wind with his own body. We were standing only half a breath apart. His eyes were on my face. I watched them drop, just for a second, to my mouth. My breath caught in my throat, the city noise, the wind. Everything just faded. There was a pull, a tension in the air between us that was so strong it felt like a physical wire. He was going to kiss me. I knew he was. He didn't. He just held my gaze, his own unblinking. The air was hot, electric. It was 1,000 times more intimate than a touch. It was a promise of what would happen after the fight. He blinked. Once, slow. We should go back. The ballroom was too hot, too loud. The smell of perfume was suffocating. I could still feel the weight of his jacket, the heat of his gaze. Vera was watching me as I re-entered. She smiled, that cold, white smile, and raised her glass in a toast. My phone, in the pocket of the green dress, vibrated. A text from an unknown number. I ducked into an alcove, my heart sinking. It was a video file. I pressed play. It was grainy, dark, a night vision shot, a shipping yard by the river. I saw Ethan. My blood turned to ice. He was talking to a man in a baseball cap, his face hidden in shadow. Ethan looked terrified. The man pushed a small, padded envelope into Ethan's hands. Ethan shook his head, dropped it. The man picked it up and forced it back into Ethan's jacket. The video ended. I felt sick. I was going to throw up, right here on the marble floor. Was it real? Was it old? Were they still watching him? It was a message. Choose a side. Little girl. I found Cassian. He was by the orchestra, alone for a moment. I stumbled. Cassian. I showed him the phone. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely hold it. He took it. His expression didn't change. He watched the clip. His eyes narrowed. He tapped the screen, pulling up the file details. It's a deep fake, he said, his voice flat. A cheap one, but effective. The metadata is corrupt. The shadows are wrong. Look at the timestamp. He pointed. It's a fabrication. But how? It's a threat. Lena, not evidence. He pulled me behind a massive marble pillar. Out of sight, he took out his own phone. It was showing a blueprint of the hotel. This is us, he said, tapping a blue dot. This is the main ballroom. This is the kitchen. And this is exit C. He highlighted a red path. The camera in that service alley is on a 5-second loop. It's a blind spot. It's been that way for 3 years. He put the phone away and looked at me. His eyes were clear. No pity, just facts. If you want to go, you go now. Go to Ethan. Lock your door. I won't stop you. The debt is paid. You're free to go. He was giving me the fire escape, the one I trusted. I looked across the room. I saw Vera laughing, her white dress like a beacon. I saw Agent Sloan watching her. I saw the data broker handing someone a business card. This room was a web, and Ethan and I were just 2 flies they'd barely noticed. They won't stop. I said, my voice was hollow. Even if I run, they'll just find another reason, another person, another procedural issue. I took a deep breath. I pulled his jacket tighter around my shoulders. I'm staying. His eyes held mine, a flicker of something, approval, respect. He nodded once. Good. Then the world exploded in noise. Whoop, whoop, whoop. A deafening alarm. Red strobe lights began to flash, turning the glittering ballroom into a nightmare. A fire has been detected in the building. A robotic voice blared. Please evacuate. Do not use the elevators. Panic. It was instant. The chaos he had predicted. A woman screamed. A table of glasses was overturned, shattering. The music died with a violent scratch. People were pushing, shoving, a tide of expensive silk and terror. Someone shoved me hard. Move. I spun, disoriented. Then a hand, strong, warm, and sure. It clamped around my wrist. Cassian. His face was alive. He wasn't scared. He was energized. Not that way, he shouted over the alarm. This way. He didn't drag me. He moved, and I was part of his motion. He pulled me with him, cutting against the tide of people running for the main doors. We shoved our way through the staff-only door, back into the industrial kitchen. It was worse. Chefs were yelling, water was spraying, steam hissed. Exit C, Cassian yelled. He didn't slow, shoving a massive rolling cart of dishes out of our path. It crashed into a wall. He slammed his shoulder against the heavy, windowless steel door at the end of the line. It flew open. We were in the alley. The night air was cold. The rain was a downpour. The alarm was a muffled scream. "Where are we?" "Here." Chained to a massive steam pipe was a long, black motorcycle. It looked futuristic, silent. It hadn't been there when I went to the roof. Cashin pulled a small pair of bolt cutters from the inside pocket of his own jacket, the one I was wearing, and with a single, brutal snap, the lock and chain fell away. He threw his leg over the seat. The bike didn't roar. It hummed, a low electric sound. "Get on." I stared for half a second. "Lena, now." I hiked the ruined silk dress up and swung my leg over, my arms grabbing his shoulders. "Not good enough," he said. He grabbed my wrists, pulled my arms around his waist, and laced my fingers together over his flat stomach. "Hold on." I did. I pressed my face against his back, against the wool of his jacket. I could feel the solid wall of muscle, the heat of him. Then we were moving. No engine, just the hiss of tires on wet pavement. We shot out of the alley, a black streak. Chicago dissolved. Red lights, white headlights, green signs, yellow taxis. They all smeared into wet, neon streaks. The wind screamed in my ears, a high-pitched shriek that was so loud it became silence. I smelled the sharp ozone of the electric motor, the wet leather of his gloves, and the clean, cold rain. I held on so tight my knuckles ached. I could feel his heart beating steady and slow against my clasped hands. I closed my eyes. The bike slowed. The screaming wind died. We stopped. My head was spinning. I didn't let go. "We're here," he said. His voice rumbled through his back. I opened my eyes. We were in the massive steel freight elevator of his building. Building 11. The doors closed, sealing us in. We rose in that perfect oily silence. The door slid open. The greenhouse. The storm was here. The wind was a living thing, howling and shrieking, rattling the glass panes in their steel frames. Rain lashed the roof, a deafening, angry drumbeat. The only light was the faint, watery glow of the city and the small, green work lights over the planters. I slid off the bike, my legs jelly. The green dress was soaked, plastered to my skin. Cassian dismounted, pulling off his wet gloves and dropping them to the floor. He ran a hand through his hair, pushing the dark, wet strands off his face. He turned to me. I was shivering, but not from the cold. He just stood there, 5 feet away, watching me. The wind screamed, a pane of glass groaned. I looked at him, really looked at him. Not the boss, not the ghost, just the man, soaked and breathing in the middle of a storm. His eyes found mine. They weren't avoiding anything. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere to hide, not in the heart of this. The air inside was thick and warm, smelling of damp earth and thyme. My breath fogged in front of my face, mingling with his. The wind screamed against the glass, a high, thin sound. But in here, the only noise was the drip of water from my ruined silk dress onto the stone floor. The greenhouse was an eye in the center of the storm. He stood still, watching me. He didn't move to get a towel. He didn't move to turn on a light. He just watched, waiting. He took a step, then stopped, his clothes plastered to him. "Do you want to be here, Lena?" His voice was low, cutting through the storm. It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a command. It was a clear, direct question. He was giving me the fire escape, even now. I looked at the water pooling at my feet, at the heavy, silk-lined jacket still draped over my shoulders, at his face, streaked with rain. I nodded. My throat was too tight to speak, so I just nodded. Yes. The word, barely a whisper, was all it took. The air shifted. The tension didn't break. It coiled, tighter. He walked to the freight elevator and slid the heavy metal gate closed. The sound of the latch catching was deafening, a final, solid thud that shut the world out. He went to a panel on the wall, and the few green utility lights snapped off, plunging us into near darkness. A second later, a soft, warm, yellow glow bloomed from light strips hidden beneath the rows of planters. The light hit the undersides of the leaves, reflecting up, turning the greenhouse into a golden, secret cave. He still hadn't moved closer. He was waiting. It was my turn. My feet felt like lead, my shoes squelching on the stone, but I took the step, then another. I stopped right in front of him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his chest, even through his wet shirt. I raised my hand. It was shaking. I put it on his chest, right over his heart. It was hammering. A fast, frantic rhythm that matched my own. My fingers moved, slowly, up his shirt, over the knot of his ruined silk tie, to the column of his throat. I settled my hand against his collar, my thumb pressing against the artery in his neck. Thump, thump, thump. He was breathing fast, but shallow. His eyes were locked on mine. "Lena," he whispered. It was a warning. I leaned in. The first kiss was slow. It was careful. It wasn't a collision like the escape from the gala. It was a question. My lips just brushed his. I felt him inhale sharply, a stutter of breath, but he didn't move. He didn't grab me. He just let me. I didn't push. I waited. Then he responded. His mouth was soft, not demanding. He wasn't taking. He was following. I let my shoulders, which had been up by my ears for weeks, finally drop. I let out the breath I hadn't realized I was holding, and it melted into his. Our breathing synced, a slow, quiet rhythm under the drumming of the rain. He lifted his hand, but he didn't grab me. He didn't touch my body. He used the back of his fingers, his knuckles, to trace the line of my jaw. It was a gentle, respectful touch, careful not to smear the faded makeup or smudge the grime from the alley. It was a touch that saw me, not just the waitress, not just the girl in the ruined dress. I leaned into his hand, his jacket, the heavy wool tuxedo, slipped from my shoulders. Neither of us reached for it. It fell onto a low rattan chair, the sound muffled by the storm. I was still cold from the rain, but he was radiating heat. I stepped closer, closing the last inch of space. My wet dress clung to me. His wet shirt clung to him. I smelled the mint and basil from the planters around us, sharp and green, mixed with the warmer, metallic scent of his skin. As I moved, my hip bumped a large terracotta pot. A cloud of sharp, herbal basil scent erupted. "Sorry," he murmured against my mouth, his voice rough. I laughed, a small, breathless sound. "It's fine." This time, I was the one who moved. I took his hand, the one that had been on my cheek, and guided it. I placed his palm flat against my back, on the thin, wet silk of the dress. My message was clear. This is okay, you can touch me. His fingers splayed wide, covering the space between my shoulder blades. His touch was a jolt, hot against my cold skin. He pulled me closer, not crushing me, but just eliminating the space. My posture, usually braced for a fight or a flight, softened. My back arched, just slightly, pressing me into his touch. My hands, which had been resting on his collar, moved. One laced into his wet hair at the nape of his neck. The other gripped his shoulder, holding on, just like I had on the motorcycle. We stood like that for a long time, just breathing. The kiss wasn't frantic. It was a discovery. When we finally pulled back, it was only inches. He rested his forehead against mine. I closed my eyes. I could feel his eyelashes flicker against my skin. "Lena," he whispered, and his voice was raw. "I don't want to use you. This can't be payment, not for a debt." My eyes snapped open. His were dark, serious, searching mine. He was telling me that this had nothing to do with Ethan. This was separate. This was its own event. "Then don't," I whispered back, my voice fierce. "Don't make me a line item. Don't make me a cost." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Fair enough. The adrenaline from the night, the escape, the terror, it was all draining away, leaving me exhausted and trembling. My knees felt weak. He seemed to sense it. He kept an arm around my waist, guiding me to a dry bench tucked under a canopy of broad-leaved plants. "Wait," he said. He disappeared into a small utility closet built into the brick wall and came back with a thick, gray wool blanket. He wrapped it around my shoulders, tucking it under my chin. He sat next to me, not too close, giving me space. I grabbed this," I said, my voice muffled by the wool. I reached into the pocket of the tuxedo jacket he'd been wearing, which was still on the rattan chair. My fingers closed around something wrapped in a napkin. I pulled it out, a Belgian waffle stolen from the gala's dessert table. It was crushed and cold, but it was food. His eyebrows shot up. "I didn't have dinner," I admitted. He took it from me, broke the soggy waffle in two, and handed me half. We sat there, in a glass box in the middle of a hurricane, sharing a cold waffle, wrapped in a blanket. "You do all this?" I asked, gesturing to the plants, the tomatoes on the vine, the rows of herbs. "Yes." "Why?" He stared at his half of the waffle. "My hands, they're better when they're busy, when they're building something." He looked at his own hands. "Dirt is simpler than other things." I understood. I looked at the rain lashing the glass. "I hate alarms," I said quietly. He looked at me. "The gala?" "Fire alarms," I corrected. "Any alarm. My family's apartment, the old one, before my dad left it burned. When I was 10, the alarms didn't go off. I just woke up to the smell." I stopped. I never told anyone that. Ever since. I'm afraid of the silence after the alarm, the whoop, whoop, and then the nothing. He didn't say, "I'm sorry," and he didn't say anything stupid. He just nodded, like I'd given him a piece of data. He was filing it away. He gardens to keep his hands from destroying. I listen for alarms so I'm never caught by the fire again. The silence was comfortable, peaceful, even. Then my phone buzzed. It was in the pocket of the silk dress, still damp. The sound was horribly loud in the quiet greenhouse. I pulled it out, a text from Tina. My heart stopped. It was a picture. The front of the Moonbridge diner. The big plate glass window was gone. Just a jagged, gaping hole. Shards of glass covered the sidewalk. "Lena, what is it?" "Tina?" Another text came through. Another picture. This one was a close-up. It was the front door of the diner. Pinned to the wood, right through the open sign, was a single, small, silver safety pin. The safety pin? The one I used to wear on my uniform. The one I used to hold the rip on my shoulder closed. The one I wore the first night I met him. This wasn't a warning. This was a signature. "We see you. We know what you hide. We know what you love. Vera?" My hand went to my mouth. I felt the waffle rise in my throat. Cassian took the phone from my trembling fingers. He looked at the first picture, the shattered glass. His face was blank. He looked at the second picture, the safety pin. His expression didn't change. He didn't curse. He didn't punch the glass. He just went still. He stood up, and he put the phone down on the bench. He reached out and squeezed my hand. Once, a hard, solid pressure. "It's time to change positions," he said. His voice was utterly calm, flat, like the surface of a frozen lake. "Let me serve them their late-night meal." I looked up at him. His voice was calm, but the pulse in his neck, the one my thumb had rested on, was a hard, visible throb under his skin. He walked to the far wall of the greenhouse, past the tomato vines. It looked like a solid wall of steel panels, part of the building's infrastructure. He pressed his hand to a spot that looked no different from any other. There was a quiet, pneumatic hiss. A panel slid open. It wasn't a garden shed. It was a steel cabinet. Inside, neatly hung, were 3 identical, nondescript jackets, dark gray, not tactical, just forgettable. Below them, a shelf. On the shelf were 6 different Illinois license plates, clean and stacked. Next to them, a set of keys and a compact, black case. He took one of the jackets. He looked at the license plates, considering them. He picked one from the middle of the stack. "This plan," he said, turning to me, his eyes like chips of flint. "It requires no blood. Not at first. The greenhouse, with its manufactured storm and false safety, was a memory. This was the reality." 3 a.m. the Calumet Canal. The air here didn't smell like earth and herbs, it smelled like rust, algae, and diesel fuel. It was a city of steel boxes, stacked 6 high, a silent, angular graveyard under a sickly yellow moon. The gold container B-17, according to Cassian, it was the digital heart of the Ivory Serpents, not their money, but their control. A climate-controlled, fire-proofed server rack holding their insurance policies. Inside that box was the fabricated evidence against Ethan. And, he said, similar files on dozens of other kids from the neighborhood leveraged to force them into service. The team was small, built for speed, not a fight. There was Rhea Voss, the driver. I only saw her for a second. She sat in the cab of a massive 18-wheel flatbed truck parked half a mile away, her face lit by the green glow of a console, her eyes never leaving the road. She just nodded once. There was Marlowe, and he was the quiet radio engineer. He looked like a grad student who hadn't slept in a week, all bony wrists and oversized glasses. He carried a backpack that probably weighed more than he did. He didn't say a word to me, just handed me a piece of equipment. And there was Cassian. Oh, he wasn't in a tuxedo. He was in the same dark, forgettable jacket he'd taken from the cabinet, with dark pants and soft-soled boots. He was all business, his movements economical, his voice a low murmur. Then there was me. "You're the noise," Marlowe had said, his voice a dry rasp, the first and only words he spoke to me. He'd handed me a small, heavy device that looked like a portable battery. "Walk the perimeter, west to east. It's spoofing phone signals, all registered to local kids. Creates a cloud of digital ghosts. They'll have to check it out. It'll pull their eyes away from the yard." "And this," Cassian said, handing me a jacket. It was like his, but lighter. Tidal fabric. Invisible to the eye, but reflects infrared light like a mirror. Their motion cams won't see a person. They'll see a blinding flare, a tide of light. It'll overload the sensors. But only if you move right. He pulled me behind a stack of rusted-out oil drums. "They have 3 cameras between here and B-17. This is what you do?" The lesson took 90 seconds. It wasn't a lesson, it was programming. "Camera 1 sweeps, you have 4 seconds, don't run, move, 3 long steps, then stop." He demonstrated. A fluid, fast glide. Camera 2 is fixed, but it's thermal. It's looking for heat. Move, but stay low. Behind the concrete barriers. Don't breathe. Hold it until you pass the yellow line. And camera 3, that one's motion activated. This is where the jacket works. You move at it, fast. You have to blind it. 2 steps, turn 2 steps back, like a dance. Create the flare, move on the reset. You have 1 second, go. I practiced it, once, twice. "Again," he said. My foot scuffed the gravel. "Silent, you're a ghost, you're not there." "I'm a waitress." Cassian. "You're a survivor," he said, his voice flat. "You unplugged the fire before you put it out. Same principle. Stop the source. Now. Again." I did it. 3 long glides. Stop. Low. Hold my breath. Pass the line. Explode forward. Flare. Step back. Good. That was it. I was ready. "Marlowe," Cassian said, tapping his earpiece. "Lena's moving. Start the clock." My heart wasn't in my chest. It was in my throat. A cold, hard bird. I held the spoofing device and started walking. I felt their eyes on me, the invisible eyes of the guards in a booth somewhere, watching their screens. Come on, look at me. Look at the ghost kids. My earpiece, a tiny bud Marlowe had jammed in my ear, crackled. "Got 'em," Marlowe's voice whispered. 2 men in a cart, moving west. They're chasing your ghosts. "Now, Lena," Cassian's voice. "The cameras, go." I went 3 long glides. My soft-soled shoes made no sound. I froze behind a stack of pallets. The red eye of the camera swept past. A mechanical sigh. Low, I dropped, scuttling behind a concrete barrier, the rough surface scraping my hands. I held my breath. My lungs burned. I saw the yellow line, painted on the asphalt. I passed it. I exhaled, gasping, in the shadow of a crane. Camera 3, the motion sensor. "Now," Cassian said. I stepped out and moved at it. 2 fast steps I felt more than saw. The infrared beam hit the jacket. I pivoted 2 steps back. The camera, blinded by the tidal flare, would be trying to reset. In that 1-second lag, I was past it, diving into the dark canyon between 2 rows of containers. I collapsed against the cold, corrugated steel. My legs were water. A hand closed on my arm, pulling me up. Cassian. Marlo was with him, already kneeling by the massive steel door of container B-17. "Drones up," Marlo whispered. "Distraction phase 2, at D block, now." I heard it, a high-pitched whine from the sky, then a series of pops like fireworks, far off. On the other side of the yard, a siren wailed, a searchlight beam cut through the night. "They're running," Marlo said, his eye pressed to a small scope. "All guards moving to D block." He turned to the lock on B-17. It was a massive electronic pad. He pulled a device from his pack, a flat card with trailing wires. He jammed it into the slot. The pad buzzed angrily. He tapped a sequence on a handheld device. The buzzing stopped. He slid a second card, a key card, into the slot. A heavy thunk echoed from inside. The lock was open. Cassian put his shoulder to the heavy lever and pulled. The door groaned, opening a 3-foot gap. "In," he ordered. Marlo first, then me. Cassian slid in last, pulling the door almost shut, leaving it open just a crack. It was dark, blacker than any night I had ever seen, and cold. The air hummed. I could hear my own pulse. It was so loud, I was sure they could hear it. All the way over in D block, it was a frantic, terrified drumbeat. Thump, 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 thump. I was going to be sick. A hand found mine in the dark, Cassian's. He didn't grab it. He just laid his hand over the back of mine, where it was gripping my jacket. His skin was warm, solid. "Breathe, Lena," he whispered, his voice right by my ear. "Slow in, slow out, calibrate." I focused on the pressure of his hand. I inhaled, slow, shaky. I exhaled, just as slow. "Again." I did it. The bird in my throat settled. My pulse slowed from a sprint to a jog. Better. He let go. Marlo clicked on a low, red light headlamp. The container was packed with electronics, floor-to-ceiling server racks humming quietly, their green and blue status lights blinking like a tiny, captive city. "They're air-gapped," Marlo whispered, moving to the central rack. "Smart, but they still need power." He pulled a small magnetic key from his kit and pressed it to the lock on the server refrigerator. It wasn't a keyhole. It was a magnetic tumbler. He turned it, counted 1, 2, 3, and turned it back. A click. The glass door swung open. "Now you," he said to me. I pulled the USB drive from my pocket. It was the wipe stick Cassian had given me. "Top port," Marlo said. "The blue one." My hand was shaking again. I slid the drive in. A light on the drive blinked once. "It's in," I said. "It's working," Marlo said, watching his device. "It's replicating, copying, and purging 30 seconds. We stood in the red glow, listening to the hum of the fans, the longest 30 seconds of my life. "Got it," Marlo said. "Pull it." I yanked the drive. "We have 2 folders," he said, staring at his screen. "Encrypted Fairy_Silver and Park_Ethan. My breath hitched. Park_Ethan. "Good, let's go," Cassian said. He moved to the door. Slam! The door didn't just close. It was slammed shut from the outside, the heavy lever thrown. A deafening final clang of metal on metal. We were sealed in. Marlo killed his headlamp. We were plunged back into absolute, terrifying darkness. A moment of pure, ringing silence. Then a new sound, a woman's laugh, high and cold, coming from a speaker somewhere outside the container. "Thank you, boys," Vera Kincaid's voice echoed, metallic and too loud. "And girl, I do appreciate you doing the spring cleaning for me." A blinding white floodlight on the outside of the container snapped on. shining in through the cracked door, turning the interior into a cage of sharp, black shadows. I saw her then, a silhouette in the gap, and 2 more silhouettes behind her, armed. "I knew you were smart, Cassian," she called, "but I didn't think you were stupid. Bringing a waitress to a data raid?" Cassian said nothing. He just stood, his body between me and the sliver of light. "He's stalling," Marlowe whispered, his voice tight. "He's buying time." "For what?" I hissed. "For Rhea," Cassian said, so low I could barely hear him. "You see, Cassian," Vera continued, "those servers were old, redundant, but that little USB stick of yours, that's new. That has the only copy, and you're going to hand it to me." "Or what?" Cassian called out. "Or I turn this container into a very small, very hot oven. The fire suppression system is offline. My apologies." Cassian turned his head. I could see his profile in the sliver of light. He looked at Marlowe. Marlowe nodded. "Rhea," Cassian said, into his earpiece. "Now." "What?" Vera's voice lost its edge. "What did you say?" Cassian raised his hands, empty, and stepped toward the door. I said, "I'm unarmed. I'm coming out." "Stay where you are. Don't move," she shrieked. But Cassian was moving, slowly, a target. He was buying Rhea seconds. I didn't hear the truck. I felt it. A low, seismic vibration in the soles of my feet, a vibration that grew into a ground-shaking roar. Vera heard it too. "What is that? What the hell is that?" The roar was deafening, and then it ended in a cataclysmic crash of tortured metal. The entire container jumped. I was thrown from my feet, slamming into a server rack. My head hit the metal, and the world exploded in white-hot pain. The truck, Rhea, she hadn't hit us. She had hit the anchor point, the massive steel latch holding the container to the one next to it. The container door, no longer level, burst open. It wasn't an escape. It was chaos. A massive cloud of white smoke, CO2, I realized, from fire extinguishers on the truck blasted into the container, instantly obscuring everything in a freezing, choking fog. Alarms, shouting, the pop, pop, pop of Vera's men firing blind into the smoke. "Lena, move," Cassian's voice. A hand grabbed my jacket and hauled me to my feet. I couldn't see. I could only choke. "Marlowe, go," Cassian yelled. "Go, go." I heard Marlowe somewhere to my left. Cassian wasn't running toward the door. He was dragging me to the back of the container. He slammed his body against a panel. It was a maintenance hatch. He threw it open. We fell out, not onto the ground, but onto a narrow service platform. Below us, maybe 10 feet down, was the canal, and next to us, moving slowly, was a freight train. "We have to jump!" he yelled over the chaos. He grabbed the railing and vaulted over it, landing with a heavy thud on the roof of a boxcar. "Your turn now?" I looked down. It looked a mile away. The train was moving, slow but moving. I climbed over the rail. My hands were slick with I didn't know what. Rain sweat. "Jump!" I jumped. My foot landed on the edge of the boxcar. The metal was wet. I slipped. My body slammed against the side of the train, my fingers scraping for a handhold. I was sliding off. My right leg dangled, the gravel of the track bed rushing past, just inches below. "Cassian!" I screamed. A hand, brutal and strong, clamped onto the collar of my jacket, right at the back of my neck. He didn't just pull me up. He hauled me, like a sack of cargo, over the edge of the roof. I landed on top of him, my knee driving into his ribs. He grunted, his breath exploding out of him as his back slammed, hard, against the steel roof of the boxcar. I just lay there, on top of him, gasping, my face buried in his jacket. The train clack-clacked beneath us, pulling us away from the yard, away from the alarms and the smoke. I was alive. My head was pounding. My knee throbbed. I could feel the sharp, pained rhythm of Cassian's breathing under me. I started to laugh. It was a crazy, hysterical sound, a sob mixed with a laugh. "You hit your head," he grunted, his voice tight with pain. "You hit your back." "Fair," he wheezed. We lay there for a full minute. tangled up on the roof of a moving train, just surviving. After a while, I rolled off him, my whole body aching. I sat up. The wind was cold, but the rain had stopped. The lights of the rail yard were a kilometer behind us. We were safe. I reached into my pocket, the USB drive. It was still there, warm in my hand. I pulled out my phone. The screen was cracked, but it worked. I plugged the drive into an adapter Cassian gave me. My phone lit up, 2 folders. Ferry_Silver_Park_Ethan. My finger, shaking, pressed on Park_Ethan. A video file. I played it. It was the video Vera had sent me at the gala. The grainy night vision shot. Ethan, the man in the baseball cap, the padded envelope. It was all there. "It's real," I whispered. My stomach turned to ice. He was... "Watch the timestamp," Cassian said, his voice still rough. He sat up, wincing, and leaned on one elbow. I looked. The timestamp in the corner wasn't just a date. It jumped. 23:04:10, 23:04:12, 23:04:17. 5 seconds were missing. "And look at his hands," Cassian said. I zoomed in. Ethan's hand, when it takes the envelope, it was a digital blur, a smudge. The video had been cut, spliced, fabricated. "It's the video they showed the prosecutor," I whispered, the pieces clicking. "This is what they used." "It's enough," Cassian said, sitting up fully. "Enough to destroy the North Lake unit, enough to end careers, if the right person releases it." I stared at the fake video, the lie that had almost cost my brother his life. "Who?" I asked. "Who releases it?" "We'll see," he said. I looked back at the phone. 1 folder left, Ferry_Silver. I tapped it. It wasn't a video. It was a collection of scanned documents, PDFs, receipts. Donation receipts, all for the Solace for Tomorrow gala, the one we'd just fled. Transfers from offshore accounts, routed through shell companies, all ending up in the gala's fund. And on the bottom of every single receipt under Approved By was a digital signature. Neera Sloan, Bife. We didn't ride the train to a station. We jumped off 2 miles past the rail yard, rolling onto a gravel embankment, our bodies aching. Cassian's back was clearly damaged. He moved with a stiff, controlled agony, but he didn't say a word about it. He just got us off the street and into another one of his silent, anonymous sedans. 24 hours passed in a blur. We weren't at the greenhouse. We were in a different concrete box, a small, clean apartment over a closed-down print shop. He made a single call. "The meat is set." That's how I ended up on the 4th level of a defunct supermarket parking garage at 5 p.m. The air was gray, smelling of old concrete, tire rubber, and the faint, sweet rot of pigeons. It was cold. Cassian stood by a concrete pillar, his hands in his pockets, his posture rigid with pain. He hadn't slept. I hadn't either. He wanted me here. He'd said, "I want you to see the machine." A car approached, its headlights cutting through the gloom. It was a standard-issue blue Ford, the kind that blends into traffic. It parked 10 spaces away. Agent Neera Sloan got out. She was in the same pantsuit she'd worn to the gala. She looked like she was on her lunch break. She walked toward us, her practical shoes making no sound. "Cassian, you look like hell." "The drive," Cassian said. He held out the small, black USB. Neera took it. She didn't look nervous. She pulled a laptop from her bag, perched it on the trunk of her car, and plugged in the drive. She clicked open the Ferry_Silver file. Her face was lit by the blue glow of the screen, showing the donation receipts, showing her own signature. She didn't flinch. "You signed them," I said. My voice was hoarse, too loud in the empty garage. "You knew. You were working with her." Neera Sloan looked up from the screen, her gaze dismissive. "Working with Vera is like saying you work with a hurricane." "No, I was channeling her. We get pressure from the top. We need wins. We need busts. Vera was a useful asset. She tips us to her rivals. We get a good headline. And we look the other way on her funding. It's resource management." KPIs, I said, the word tasting like ash. Key performance indicators. That's what you call it. That's what my boss calls it, she corrected me, her voice sharp. The press wants a story. The politicians want a statistic. I give them both. Vera was a shortcut. My brother, I said, stepping forward. Cassian put a hand on my arm, not pulling me back, just anchoring me. He was a line item, a statistical necessity. You were going to let Vera railroad him with a fake video just to make your numbers look good. Neera finally closed the laptop. She looked at me, really looked at me. He was the cost of business, kid. Yes, I wasn't happy about it, but I would have signed off on it. The cold, blunt honesty of it was worse than a lie. The business model is changing, Cassian said, his voice a low rumble. Neera turned her attention to him. You have leverage. What's the offer? You release this. You burn me, but you don't burn the Bureau. They'll just replace me, and your brother will still be on the hook. I don't want to burn the Bureau, Cassian said. I want to aim it. He laid out the deal. It was cold, clean, and brutal. You have 2 files, the Fairy_Silver file, which proves your complicity, and you have the real, unedited Park_Ethan file, which proves his innocence and the fabrication. You're going to use both. Neera's eyes narrowed. How? You're going to take the Fairy_Silver file, and you're going to break the story yourself. You will be the hero. Agent Naira Sloan, BIFE, announces an internal discovery of a massive fraud ring. The Solace for Tomorrow Fund was a money laundering operation run solely by Vera Kincaid and the Ivory Serpents. You want me to throw her to the wolves, Neera said, a flicker of appreciation in her eyes. I want you to feed them, Cassian corrected. You take her down, you use that file as your evidence. BIFE gets the biggest, cleanest win of the decade. Your career is made. And in return, you use the other file. You publicly and loudly announce that in the course of your investigation into Vera, you uncovered evidence of fabrication by the North Lake Prosecutorial Unit. You announce that Ethan Park was a victim. You clear his name, not quietly, not procedural issues. You make him a poster child for your new, transparent BIFE. You clean your own house and take down the serpents in one move. Everyone wins. Except Vera, Neera said. Except Vera, Cassian confirmed. I stared at him. This was his plan, not justice. A trade. You can't, I broke in, looking at Cassian. You can't just let them get away with it. You're letting her. I pointed at Neera. Get away with it. You're just swapping one story for another. You're turning justice into a commodity, a bargaining chip. Neera actually laughed, a short, dry, humorless sound. Justice is always a commodity, kid, she said, sliding the USB drive into her pocket. It always has been. The only difference is the price tag. And frankly, this is a good price. I felt sick. I looked at Cassian, my moral compass spinning, searching for true north. Was this it? Was this fixing the structure? It just felt like rearranging the rot. He saw the look on my face. He wasn't looking at Neera anymore. He was talking to me. I don't trade injustice. Lena, he said, his voice quiet but intense. I don't have that luxury. I buy time. I buy safety for the people I choose. He held my gaze. Ethan is chosen. Tina is chosen. You are chosen. The rest is just noise. The words hit me, harder than the crash in the rail yard. I buy time for the people I choose. It was the coldest, most pragmatic, and most honest thing anyone had ever said to me. It was terrifying, because I couldn't find the flaw in his logic. He wasn't a hero. He was a survivor, just like me. He just had better tools. Neera nodded. 72 hours. I need to get the warrants. I need to build the narrative. She got in her car and drove away. The fallout was immediate, but it didn't take 72 hours. It took 12. That night, my phone lit up, an alert from a local news blog, one of those independent anti-establishment sites. The headline was stark: the owner of Midnight cuts a deal. Sources report Cassian Morrow seen meeting with BIFE, selling out the streets to save his own skin. Vera, I whispered. She hadn't waited. She was painting him as an informant. The next morning, Orion Lestrade, Cassian's sharp-suited lawyer from the gala, stormed into the greenhouse. I was there, wiping down the leaves of a tomato plant, my hands needing something simple to do. Cassian Orion's voice was a controlled fury. "What in God's name are you doing? I've spent 10 years building a firewall of plausible deniability around you. You've balanced this entire organization on the edge of a knife, and now you're going to set it on fire for a waitress." His eyes dismissed me. I was a piece of furniture, a liability. Cassian didn't even look up from the clay pot he was replanting. "She's not a waitress. Orion, she's the calibration." "She's a problem," Orion shot back. "Vera won't just counter Sue. She'll counterattack. You've made this personal. You involved the feds. You broke the code." "Then we changed the code," Cassian said. He set the pot down and picked up his phone. He didn't call a soldier. He didn't call a fixer. He called a reporter, a real one from the Tribune. "Hello, David, I have an anonymous tip," Cassian said, his voice smooth. "You should look into the Ivory Serpent's yes. No, the real story is that Vera Kincaid has been a BIFE informant for years, using federal protection to systematically eliminate her competition. How do I know? Ask her about the Calumet raid. Ask her why BIFE let her walk away. Yes, Solace for Tomorrow was her fund. You're welcome." He hung up. I stared at him. He wasn't just fighting back. He was rewriting the narrative. He was poisoning Vera's reputation with the very people she was trying to appeal to. But Vera didn't respond with a lawsuit. She didn't respond with a reporter. My phone rang. The screen flashed Tina. My heart seized. I answered. "Lena," she wasn't crying. She was whispering, a high, thin, terrified sound, like a mouse in a trap. "Lena, I came home from my shift. I went to go to bed." "Tina, what is it? What's wrong?" "I felt something under the covers. My mattress," she broke a choked, wet sob. "Oh, God, Lena." "Tina, talk to me. What did you feel?" "It was a knife," she whispered. A huge steak knife from the diner. It was just lying there. And there was a picture, taped to the handle. "A picture of what?" I was already on my feet, walking toward Cassian. "Of you," she sobbed. "It was from my birthday, at the diner. You were laughing. You were so happy." I stopped breathing. "And there was a note, Lena, taped to the blade. It said, 'It hurts to lose the things that make you smile.' Vera, she finds the one thing you love. She wasn't threatening me. She was threatening Tina, to hurt me." Before I could even think, Cassian was at my side. He must have heard. He took the phone from my shaking hand. "Tina, this is Cassian Morrow. Listen to me. Pack one bag, toiletries and clothes for 3 days. Nothing else. Ria Voss, a woman you can trust, will be at your apartment door in exactly 4 minutes. Do not talk to anyone. Do not answer any other calls. Do exactly as she says. Do you understand?" I heard Tina's muffled yes. He hung up. He was already dialing another number. "Ethan, pack a bag, now. 4 minutes." He moved them. He didn't ask. He just did. He relocated my entire life in the span of 30 seconds. That night, he took me to see them, just to calm my racing heart. The safe house was an apartment on the Ravensill Pier, a new development I'd never heard of. It was clean, anonymous, and made of concrete and glass. "It's clean," Cassian said, as we stood on the balcony, watching Ethan and Tina inside, shell-shocked, playing a card game. "The property is owned by a shell I set up a decade ago. It has a submerged exit in the boat launch that leads directly to the canal. No one gets in or out unless I know. They are safe, I promise." I leaned against the railing, the cold air hitting my face. I looked at my hands, waitress hands, calloused from hot plates and bleach. Now they felt different. I thought about that first night, panicking over a $12.50 check. It felt like a lifetime ago. A different person. I had stepped from forgetting to charge for coffee to trading federal indictments. Orion had called me a waitress, a liability. I looked back inside, at Ethan, at Tina. They were safe because I had chosen, because Cassian had chosen me. I wasn't a liability. I wasn't on the sidelines anymore. I wasn't just a victim of the structure. I was in it. I was helping to aim it. My phone buzzed, a news alert. I turned on the small TV in the safe house, a live press conference. Vera Kincaid. She was standing at a podium, her platinum hair pulled back. She wasn't in a gala dress. She was in a severe, dark blue business suit. She looked like a CEO. The sign behind her was chillingly familiar. Solace for tomorrow. Special announcement. A reporter was shouting a question. Given the recent allegations from anonymous sources that your organization was cooperating with BIFE. Vera smiled, a sad, patronizing smile. We are as shocked by these vicious, unfounded rumors as you are, which is why, in the interest of full transparency, we are taking the unprecedented step of releasing our full, audited donor list. We and our benefactors have nothing to hide. A document flashed on the screen behind her, a PDF, a long list of names. A reporter gasped, "Miss Kincaid, on page 4 is that..." The camera zoomed in, and there, nestled between a tech billionaire and a shipping magnate, was one name. Cash-in Morrow donation $2,000,000. Vera looked at the camera, her expression one of perfect, calculated confusion. Yes, it seems Mr. Morrow was one of our most generous benefactors. We are, of course, as confused by this as you are. It was a lie, a brilliant, vicious, devastating lie. She wasn't just countering his narrative. She was tying him to the crime. She was painting him as her partner. If she was going down, she was chaining him to her ankle and pulling him into the fire. I stared at the black television screen. Vera's face was gone, but her manufactured, patronizing smile was burned into my memory. She hadn't just dodged the bullet. She had caught it, melted it down, and forged it into a new one, aimed directly at us. $2 million, I said. The words fell into the quiet of the greenhouse, heavy and dead. Cassian was standing by the glass wall, his back to me, looking down at the city lights. His posture was still rigid, a map of the pain from his fall on the train. You told me you don't use money to fix things. I accused, my voice tight. I don't, he said, not turning. Then what do you call that? I spat, gesturing at the dark TV. A donation solace for tomorrow. You're just like her. You play the same games, buy the same charity dinners, wash the same dirty money. You just lied to me about it. He turned, slowly, and I saw his face in the faint glow of the planter lights. He was pale, and his eyes were dark. I never lied to you, Lena. You let me believe you were different, that you were outside their system. But you're in it. You're just another rich man buying his way into the room. Yes, he said. The simple, unadorned admission stopped my anger cold. What? Yes, I bought a seat in the room. He saw my confusion and clarified. I didn't donate to Vera's fund, not directly. I donated through 3 separate satellite funds, all legitimate, all audited. But yes, the money ended up in her solace account. It was the price of admission. Admission to what? To know who was in that ballroom, to know who was bidding on the art, to know who Vera was talking to. He took a step closer, his limp almost unnoticeable unless you were looking for it. My way is not clean, Lena. It's just precise. I don't have the luxury of protesting on a sidewalk. My only language is arrangement, leverage, position. The anger came rushing back, but this time it was mixed with a cold, sharp fear. And what am I shot back. Am I leverage? Am I your calibration? Or am I just the waitress, Orion called me? A prop. Something you used to get the USB drive. Something you could aim at Vera. The silence that followed was suffocating. The storm outside was long gone, but the tension in the glass house was so high it felt like the panes would shatter. It was a high, thin wire humming between us. He looked at me, and in his eyes, I didn't see a boss or a ghost. I saw a man who looked exhausted, cornered. He had started to reach for my hand, to offer a touch, but he stopped. His fingers hovered in the air between us for a half-second before he let his hand fall to his side. "If you walk out that door tomorrow," he said, his voice quiet, almost rough, "if you take Ethan and Tina and you disappear, I will ensure you are never found. I will ensure you are safe. Vera will never touch you. Neera will never know your name. That is my promise." My breath caught. It wasn't an answer to my question. It was a confession. He was offering me the ultimate fire escape and exit from him. For a man whose entire existence was built on control, on knowing every piece on the board, on owning, letting one go was an abdication. It was a form of suicide for his power. It was the only way he knew how to say "I love you." I couldn't answer him. I couldn't breathe. I just turned, my heart hammering, and walked to the elevator. I couldn't stay there. I went to the safe house. I didn't sleep. I sat on the sterile balcony of the Ravensill Pier apartment, wrapped in a cheap blanket, watching the black, oily water of the canal. The moon was just a fingernail clipping in the sky. I thought about my old life. The click, click, click of the diner's POS machine, the smell of stale coffee. I thought about the safety pin, the one I used to hide a tiny rip in my uniform, a small, private flaw I'd patched myself. I thought about how Vera had found that one, tiny detail, and turned it into a weapon, nailing it to the diner door, a symbol. I know it holds you together. I can pull it apart. Then I thought about Cassian's hand in the total darkness of the shipping container, when my heart was a frantic bird trying to escape my chest. His hand, just covering mine, not grabbing, not forcing, just there, solid, warm, calibrating me. I thought about his back slamming into the steel roof of the train. He had twisted, taken the impact, and pulled me to safety. I thought about Ethan's face when he walked out of Northlake, that first squinting, disbelieving smile as he saw the sun. Cassian had bought that smile. He had paid for it, not with $2 million, but with leverage, with precision, with a cost I was only just beginning to understand. "Can't sleep." I jumped. Ethan was standing in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "No." He came out and leaned on the railing, grabbing a bottle of water from the table. He was quiet for a long time, watching the water. Northlake had burned the kid out of him. "He's dangerous, isn't he, Morrow?" It wasn't a question. I nodded, my throat tight. "Yes." "Is Tina safe in there?" He gestured to the other bedroom, where Tina was sleeping. "Are we safe here?" "Yes." The answer came without hesitation. That, at least, was a fact. He took a drink. "Lena." He paused, and I knew the real question was coming. "Do you love him?" The question hung in the cold night air, the honest, brutal question only a brother can ask. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say he's a monster or it's just a arrangement. I looked down at my hands, resting on the cold metal railing, waitress hands. "I'm learning," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "how to not hate myself for it." He just nodded, like that made perfect sense. "Okay, just be careful. Guys like that, they don't just love, they own." Bzzz-it, bzzz-it. My phone, on the balcony table. It wasn't a text, it was a video call, from a blocked number. My blood turned to ice. "Lena, don't," Ethan said, his voice sharp. I pressed the green accept icon. The screen flickered, then resolved. It was dark, a warehouse. Maybe dust motes floated in the beam of a single, bare bulb. And Tina. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." She was tied to a simple wooden chair. Her mouth was covered with thick silver duct tape. Her eyes were wide, white with terror, and she was crying, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Vera's voice, not her face. Smooth, amused. "Hello, Lena. I see you're still awake. I do hate waking people." "Where is she? You let her go!" I screamed, my voice cracking, my whole body shaking. "She's fine," Vera said calmly. "For now." A digital timer appeared in the corner of the screen. Red numbers, 2000. It clicked to 1959. But my patience is thin. You and your friend did some spring cleaning. I want my property back. The original. The USB drive. The USB drive, she confirmed. Come alone. Silver Ferry Dock, Pier 4. You have 20 minutes if I see him, she said. And I knew exactly who he was. If I see his shadow, if I see a car I don't recognize, Tina gets to learn how to breathe water. 1947. The call went dead. Lena. No. Ethan grabbed my arm. You have to call him. You have to call Cassian. He's the only one who can... No. I ripped my arm away from him, my mind racing. That's what she wants. She wants him. This isn't about the drive. Ethan, it's about him. She wants to lure him into a trap. She wants a war. If he comes, Tina's dead. She'll kill her just to make him watch. So what are you going to do? He yelled. You're just going to go, she'll kill you both. I have to. I grabbed the drive. It was in my jacket pocket. I grabbed my keys. Lock this door. Do not open it for anyone but me or Cassian. Do you understand me, anyone? Lena, don't do this. I was already at the door. I pulled out my phone. I owed him something. A warning. A lie. I sent a single text to Cassian. Don't follow me. I hit send, shut the phone off, and ran. I knew he'd get the message. I knew he would understand, in that cold, pragmatic part of his brain, that I was doing exactly what he would do. I was trying to protect the people I had chosen. He would know it was a trap. And I knew he wouldn't listen. The drive took 12 minutes. I ran the last 4 blocks. The Silver Ferry Dock was a skeleton, abandoned, stretching out into the black, oily water. Pier 4. I saw her. Vera, standing under a single, flickering lamppost, her platinum hair almost glowing. She was alone. And she had Tina, still tied to the chair, right at the end of the pier, just feet from the black water. Lena? Tina's voice was muffled and terrified. I'm here, I yelled, my voice shaking. I'm alone, I have the drive. I held it up, the small black rectangle, so it caught the light. Vera smiled, that cold, white, salt crystal smile. Such a good girl, so predictable. Throw it. Let her go first. No, the drive first, or I'll just kick the chair over. Her boot tapped the leg of Tina's chair. Your choice. My heart hammered. I couldn't risk it. I threw the drive. It skittered, skating across the wet wooden planks, stopping right at Vera's feet. She bent, slowly, picked it up, and examined it. She smiled, then tucked it into the pocket of her white coat. There, I said, panting, my lungs burning. Now let her go. Of course, Vera said. She walked over to Tina and, with a single, theatrical gesture, ripped the tape from her mouth. Tina screamed, a raw, painful sound. It's okay, Tina, you're okay. I started to run toward her. Vera pulled a knife and, with 2 quick slashes, cut the ropes on Tina's hands. Go on, run to your friend. Tina scrambled from the chair, sobbing, and ran toward me. Lena. I ran toward her, my arms open. I've got you! I've got you! We met halfway down the pier. I grabbed her, pulling her into a hug, my face buried in her hair. And then I heard the hiss. It came from under the planks, from the chair Tina had just left. It's a trap, I whispered. A massive pop, not an explosion. Smoke, thick, acrid, gray smoke erupted from a device under the chair, instantly blanketing the pier. I couldn't breathe. Lena, Tina shrieked. I heard Vera laughing, a thin, cruel sound, and then another sound. Sirens. Not one, a dozen, coming from every direction. The flashing blue and red lights cut through the smoke, turning the world into a swirling, disorienting nightmare. She called the cops, I yelled, grabbing Tina. She set us up, she set me up. They would find me, holding my kidnapped friend, with Vera long gone. I'd be the one holding the bag. I can't see which way is the street, Tina panicked, pulling away. This way, I grabbed her hand and pulled. A spotlight, harsh and white, hit us. BPD, hands in the air, a voice boomed over a loudspeaker. I panicked. I acted on pure instinct. I grabbed Tina and tackled her, pulling her down flat onto the wooden planks, out of the direct light. Don't move. Hands in the air on your knees, do it now. We were trapped. Then, a sound from below us, a scraping of wood on wood. A set of planks right next to my head lifted, like a trap door. Lena? Cassian. He was in the dark, in the waterlogged space under the pier. He'd been here the whole time. Come on, now, before they leave the cars. I didn't hesitate. I shoved Tina toward the hole. Go, go. She scrambled in. I looked back, once, at the blinding white lights, then slid into the darkness after her. Cassian pulled the planks closed. Total darkness, the sound of lapping water, the smell of creosote and old, dead fish. The sirens above us were muffled, but I could hear the heavy thud, thud, thud of police boots running on the pier, just feet above our heads. Tina was hyperventilating. I can't breathe. Oh God, it's so dark. Tina, be quiet. Cassian's voice was a blade in the dark. He wasn't talking to her. He was talking to me. He grabbed my hand. Not gently, hard. He pulled me toward him. You're angry, he whispered, his voice right by my ear. You're terrified. I get it. You followed me, I hissed, my voice shaking with rage and adrenaline. Get angry later, he breathed. His voice was strained. His back had to be on fire. Breathe first. I was shaking, vibrating with so much fear I was going to fly apart. His other hand came up in the dark. It found my face. His fingers were cold, wet from the pier water. He didn't touch my mouth. He just pressed his forehead to my temple. A solid, grounding pressure. I'm here. I'm real. We are alive. I let out the breath I'd been holding, and it came out as a broken sob. I'm sorry, I whispered. I know, he said. His hand found mine again, and our fingers laced together, finding a new, steady rhythm in the dark. Then, in the cold, wet space, surrounded by sirens, he kissed me. It wasn't the slow, discovering kiss from the greenhouse. It was short. It was hard. It was desperate. It wasn't about romance. It was about survival. It was a seal, a pact. We get out of this, together. We stayed frozen, listening to the boots. My other phone vibrated, the clean one Cassian had given me. I pulled it out. The bright screen lit our faces, making us ghosts in the dark. Tina, Cassian, and me. It was Nira Sloan. I pressed the answer button. Where are you? She demanded. Taking a walk by the pier. What's wrong? Agent, did you get your woman? Silence. Then her voice, cold as the water around us. We changed the deal. Vera's leaked that donation story. It got too loud. My boss got spooked. What does that mean? Nira, Cassian said, his voice loud enough for the phone to hear. It means I can't pin it all on her. She's got political cover now. My boss wants a bigger head, one that makes everyone happy. The press, the politicians, and the serpents. He wants a compromise. Who? I asked, though my heart already knew. I need Cassian's head on a platter, she said, her voice flat. It's the only play left. The phone in my hand felt like a bomb. Nira's voice was a flat, dead line in the darkness under the pier. I need Cassian's head on a platter. The sirens were closer. The thud of boots was directly above us. Tina was sobbing, a high, thin sound she couldn't control. Okay, Cassian said, his voice as calm as if she'd just offered him a cup of coffee. What? I hissed, staring at him in the blackness. Okay, he repeated to Nira, but not here. Not like this. You don't get me covered in mud. You get me in the light. It has to be public. My terms. A pause from Nira. You're negotiating. You don't have a choice, Cassian said, the steel back in his voice. My waitress just broadcast your signature all over the Solace Fund. You need me to be a bigger story than you. I'm your only way out, agent, so you'll do it my way. Where? She snapped. Old City Hall, the renovation site. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I walk in. You put the cuffs on. and you bring the independent press. I want every blogger, every podcaster, every kid with a phone. No network news, just the people. And in exchange, you honor the original deal. Ethan Park is publicly exonerated. Tina is placed in federal protective custody as a witness, not a suspect. You do that first, or I release the unedited fairy_silver file, the one that shows the real money trail, the one that leads to your boss. The line was silent for a long, tense second. 10 a.m., Neera said and hung up. We didn't talk as we escaped. Cassian knew a way out, a submerged tunnel that led from the pier's foundations to a storm drain 3 blocks inland. We moved through the cold, rushing water Tina supported between us. By the time we made it back to the print shop, the sun was a gray smear in the sky. You can't, I said, as he was washing the river grime from his face in a utility sink. His back was a landscape of deep, dark bruises. He winced as he moved. It's done, Lena. No, you can't just walk in. You're trusting her, the woman who just sold you out, and the woman who built her career on KPIs. He turned, dabbing his face with a rough paper towel. I'm not trusting her. I'm trusting the machine. She's right. Her boss is scared. Vera has political cover. The only way to win is to make myself the sacrifice. They need a story. I'll give them one. That's not a plan, that's surrender. It's a move, he said, his voice sharp. He stepped close to me, his eyes intense. I can't fight Vera and Bife at the same time. Not in the street. They'll use you. They'll use Ethan. They'll burn the whole block down to get to me. This way I'm contained. I'm in their system, but I'm in it on my terms. I control the room. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out a ring. It wasn't a diamond. It was a simple, heavy band of brushed silver, thick, solid. He took my left hand. He didn't ask. He just slid it onto my 4th finger. It was heavy. It's not a promise, he said, his voice so low I could barely hear it. It's an anchor, something to hold, to remind you that this is real, so you don't get washed away in the narrative. I looked at the ring, at his battered hand covering mine. I'm the one who's supposed to be anchoring you, I whispered. A ghost of a smile. You are. And he let me go. Now, get lost. I want you in that crowd. I want you to watch. 10 a.m. The old city hall was a skeleton of scaffolding and blue tarps. The air was cold, smelling of concrete dust and diesel. And just as he'd demanded, the press was there. Not the polished network vans, but a swarm of kids with phones on gimbals, bloggers with fuzzy mics, a few grizzled independent reporters I'd never seen. They were buzzing like flies. Then I saw him. He walked out of the alley alone, wearing a clean, dark gray coat. He didn't look hurt. He didn't look scared. He just walked. He advanced toward the steps, his hands visible at his sides. A crack. It was sharp, splitting the air. It wasn't a firecracker. It was high velocity. I screamed. Cassian stumbled. A spray of dark fabric and a puff of dust exploded from his left shoulder. He didn't fall. He just stopped. He looked down at his shoulder, where a red stain was already blossoming, soaking the gray wool. He slowly looked up, not at the crowd, but at the rooftop of the building across the street. He knew. Vera. It wasn't a kill shot. It was a media shot, a wound, a perfect, telegenic punctuation to her story. The wounded boss, surrendering. Neera Sloan must have given her the location, a final betrayal. Cassian held his ground. He winced, a flicker of white-hot pain crossing his face. Then, calmly, he raised his uninjured hand, then the other, slowly, his face a mask of iron control. Neera Sloan stepped out from behind a pillar, her Bife jacket on, her face all business. Cassian Morrow, you are under arrest for financial crimes and conspiracy to defraud. The crowd surged. The phones went up. They were filming his blood. They were filming his surrender. My blood turned to fire. You want a story? I'll give you a story? I was in the middle of the crowd. I pulled out my phone, the other phone, the one with the copy. I started a live stream, pushing the feed directly to the independent bloggers I knew were watching. I opened the fairy_silver file, the one with Nira's signature on the donation receipts. I didn't add a tip. I just added one. Clear caption. Ask BIFE agent Nira Sloan why her signature is on Vera Kincaid's laundry receipts. #solace. For tomorrow, #BIFE. I hit go. Within seconds, a blogger near me lowered his phone. Wait, what the hell is this? Another one. I'm getting a feed wholly. Is that Sloan's signature? The narrative shattered. The questions stopped being about Cassian. They turned, a tide of angry voices, toward Nira. Agent Sloan, did you take money from Kincaid? Is this arrest a cover-up? Nira's face went from triumph to stone-cold fury. She saw me in the crowd. She saw my phone. She gave the signal. Get him inside, now! The interrogation room was bright white. Fluorescent lights hummed, a sound designed to drive you insane. Cassian sat at the table, his shoulder bandaged, the sleeve of his shirt cut away. I was in the observation room, watching through the one-way glass, with a furious Orion Lestrade at my side. Nira Sloan stormed in. She slapped her hands on the table. Your little waitress. You think this is a game? Cassian just looked up. He didn't look at her. He looked past her, at the glass, at me. He smiled. A small, tired, but genuine smile. We're all just variables in each other's propaganda model. Agent, he said, his voice calm. You wanted a story. Now you have two. Which one do you think the public will like more? The wounded mobster or the corrupt Fed? Nira was trapped. She couldn't just bury him. I had made her the co-star of her own downfall. Before she could answer, the door flew open. Orion Lestrade, he swept in, holding a single embossed document. He didn't look at Cassian. He just fixed Nira with his hawk-like gaze. Agent Sloan, this is a special district writ from the Interjurisdictional Special Court. He slid the paper onto the table. It was beautiful. All stamps and signatures. It requires my client be transferred immediately to a secure federal holding for a non-camera, non-recorded hearing on matters of national financial security. The case is now sealed. You are instructed to stand down. It was the most magnificent lie I had ever witnessed. There was no interjurisdictional special court. It was a legal ghost, a phantom organization Orion had likely invented over breakfast. Nira stared at the paper. She knew it was fake, but it was so plausible. It was so official. To challenge it would be to risk her career, which was already hanging by the thread I had spun. She looked at Cassian. She looked at the paper. She looked at the one-way mirror. Get him out of my sight, she snarled. It was a win, a temporary one. As Orion was escorting Cassian out, the real war began, Vera's counterattack. It wasn't a bullet this time. It was a video, a new one. A leaked security cam feed from the Viridian Crown Gala. It was a masterpiece of digital fabrication. It showed me, in the green dress, slipping Cassian a small black object. It showed me talking to the data broker he'd accidentally touched. The audio was a chop shop of my voice, spliced and rearranged. Get the data, Vera won't see it coming. He's all yours. It painted me as the bait, the songbird, as Vera's paid trolls called it, the honeypot, the woman Cassian had used to set the whole thing up. My face was everywhere. The internet lit up. Half the city was screaming for Cassian's release, calling him a whistleblower. The other half was calling for my head, calling me a Judas, a monster. When I snuck back to my neighborhood, I saw it. The Moonbridge Diner. The new glass window was shattered again. This time, there was no safety pin. Just two words, spray-painted in dripping red. Forgetful girl = Judas. I was in hiding. The print shop was compromised. Orion had moved me to a tiny, windowless room in the sub-basement of his law firm. My burner phone vibrated. A new number. We have Ethan. He's safe. The Greaves agreement is in effect. He will be transferred to your custody. 4 p.m., Lincoln Park, the conservatory. Come alone. My heart stopped. Greaves. A new name. A new player. This was the boss Nira had been protecting. It was a trap. I could smell it. The park public. It was too clean, but it was Ethan. I had to go. I had no choice. I pulled on my hoodie, ready to walk into the lion's mouth. My phone buzzed. One more time, a different number, an encrypted text. Don't go to the park. It's a cleanup crew. Go to the North Lake Archive. Greaves is burning the original files. All of them. Tonight. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. The bait, my brother. Or the fire, the source, the place where it all began. The place that had the original, physical, paper and ink lie that had started this all. I looked at the silver ring on my finger, the anchor. Cassian wouldn't go for the bait. He'd go for the source. I was going to the fire. I'm not going to the park. I'm going to the fire. I run. My breath is a hot, ragged cloud in the stairwell. I'm not thinking. I'm just moving. The North Lake Prosecutorial Unit, the place that tried to swallow my brother whole. The silver ring on my finger is a cold, heavy weight, an anchor. Stop the source. The archive is in the basement. I hit the door at a run. It's supposed to be locked. It's open. The hallway is chaos. The lights are flickering. Not a random electrical fault, but a rhythmic, pulsing strobe. Pop, pop, pop. It's wrong. It's disorienting. The air smells thick. Not just old paper and dust. It smells like bleach and gasoline. My shoes squeak on the linoleum. I'm holding my breath. I can hear my own heart, a frantic drum against my ribs. I round the corner, the archive room. The door is propped open with a fire extinguisher. Inside, a man in a gray archivist's uniform is working. He's not filing. He's pouring fluid from a metal can onto a massive, rolling cart of blue folders. Blue, the same color as Ethan's file. At the far end of the room, the incinerator chute is open, its heavy metal door unlocked. The inside glows a dull, hungry orange. It's hot. The air shimmers. He hasn't seen me. He pulls out a lighter. I don't scream. I don't yell. I move. I grab the fire extinguisher from the doorway. It's heavy. I don't aim for the fire. I aim for him. "Hey!" I shout. He turns. His face is blank. No surprise, and he raises the lighter. I throw the extinguisher. Not at him, at the cart. I throw it with all my weight, all my fear. It hits the metal cart with a catastrophic clang. The cart tips over, spilling the soaked files across the floor, away from the incinerator. The man lunges, but not at me, at the spill. He's trying to light the pile. I run past him, to the wall of shelves, PA, park. My fingers are numb. I'm pulling at the drawers. They're locked. The man is running toward me now. I grab the only thing I can. A heavy-duty hole punch from a desk. I swing it. He ducks. I slam it into the lock on the filing cabinet. It doesn't break. He grabs my arm. His grip is like steel. "You shouldn't be here," he whispers. I slam my elbow back into his ribs, a move I learned at the diner, breaking up a fight. He grunts. I twist, but he holds on. The smell of gasoline is everywhere. I can see the lighter, still in his other hand. My hand is burning. I realize I'd brace myself against the hot metal casing of the incinerator. I don't care. I rake my fingernails across his face. He yells, more in surprise than pain, and his grip loosens for a half second. It's all I need. I grab the burning hot handle of the file drawer, searing my palm. I rip it open. Parker, Park, Ethan. It's there. The blue folder. The original. The lie. I snatch it. A new voice says. I freeze. The man in the gray uniform steps back, his task incomplete. Standing in the doorway, framed by the flickering, awful light, is a man I've never seen. He's in his late 50s, perfect suit, gray hair. He's wearing immaculate, soft leather gloves. He's smiling. "You," he says, his voice disappointed, "are not supposed to be part of the equation. Miss Park." He steps into the room. "Get the file," he says to the fake archivist. "Who are you?" I gasp, backing away, clutching the blue folder to my chest. "I'm Malcolm Greaves," he says. He sounds like a college professor. "I'm the chief prosecutor, and you are standing in the way of a very neat, very clean solution." He sees me glance at the burning hot incinerator. Oh, yes, he says. All of it. We're upgrading our systems. Digital, you understand? These old paper records, they're just a liability, especially. He nods at the file in my hands. When they contain clerical errors. You're behind Naira. I realize, my mind racing. You're her boss. You're the one who set Vera up. You're the one farming KPIs. His smile widens. He is enjoying this. KPIs? Yes. A lovely term. You can't run a city on justice. Miss Park, it's too abstract. You run it on data, on conviction rates, on wins. Sometimes, you have to create the win. You have to manufacture the data. A kid like your brother, he was just raw material. You, Vera, Nira, even Cassian, you're all just raw material. He steps closer. But now we have a new problem, a new narrative. Give me the file. No. Don't be a child. His voice hardens. Your brother is bait in Lincoln Park. You know this. Cassian Morrow is in a federal transport, but the transport is taking a very scenic route, a route that can be easily rerouted. You're threatening them. I'm offering you a trade, Greaves says, stepping into the light. A clean slate. You're a hero. Lena, the girl who exposed the serpents. Give me that one piece of paper, that singular clerical error. In return, I make a call. The transport holding Mr. Morrow is released. Truly, no games. And your brother becomes the face of our new reform initiative. He'll get a full apology, a scholarship. He'll be the poster child for our new, transparent Northlake. He's trying to cut me off, to sever me from Cassian, to buy my silence. The lights in the hallway die. Not a flicker. They go out. The whole building is plunged into pitch blackness. The only light is the dull, hungry orange glow from the open incinerator. Greaves spins around. What is this? Robert, get the lights. The fake archivist. Robert is fumbling for a phone. I don't wait. I run. I slam my shoulder into Greaves, pushing him toward the hot incinerator. He shouts. Stumbling back, I'm running for the door, into the blackness. I can hear them crashing behind me. I hit the stairs. I'm not going up. I'm going, I don't know. The fire escape. I slam through the heavy metal bar of the emergency exit. The alarm blares, a deafening, piercing shriek. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I'm in the parking garage. Cold air, the smell of exhaust. I stop, panting. My hand is on fire. The blue folder is tucked inside my jacket. I look up. He's there, leaning against the railing of the fire escape. One level up, Cassian. He's not in a transport. He's not in a cage. He's just there. His shoulder is still bandaged, the dark coat thrown over it. He's pale. He's breathing hard. He looks down at me. No smile, just a fact. You didn't go for the bait, he says, his voice a rough rasp. Neither did you. I gasp. He starts to move, then winces, his bad shoulder screaming. The transport Rhea cut the power to Block B. The magnetic locks popped. I got out. He taps his temple. The map. The one you photographed. I'd forgotten. Weeks ago, I'd brought food to a crew working on the old city hall renovations. I'd taken pictures of the blueprints for fun. I'd sent them to him. Look at this old dump. He'd memorized them. He knew the tunnels. He comes down the stairs, taking them one at a time, his body stiff. We have to move. Greaves won't be far behind. He gets to the landing. He grabs my good hand. His is cold. The silver ring he gave me grates against his... We run. We burst out of the stairwell, into the open air of the garage, the river. The exit is just ahead, a square of gray light. A figure steps into that light, blocking it. A silhouette, sharp and slender, platinum blonde hair, catching the faint light. Vera? She's not smiling. She looks like she just came from hell. Her white coat is smeared with soot. End of the line! Children! She hisses. He double-crossed me. Greaves. He set me up. He was going to let me take the fall for all of it. Get out of the way, Vera, Cassian says, pushing me half behind him. No. She kicks off her high-heeled shoes. They clatter on the concrete. I'm not going down. Not for him, but I am taking you with me. She lunges. She's fast. A blur. She doesn't go for Cassian, she goes for me, for the file. I'm not a waitress. I'm not a victim. She claws at my jacket. I grab a dirty shop towel from a mechanic's cart and snap it, like I'm cracking a hot towel at the diner. The sound is sharp. It hits her across the face. She shrieks, surprised, and kicks, a dancer's kick, high and fast. I grab a metal trash can lid and block it. The clang echoes in the garage. Cassian moves. He's in pain. His bad arm is useless. He's trying to get around her. Vera sees him. She feints at me, then spins, a blade appearing in her hand, a thin, platinum dagger. She lunges at his good side. He can't block it. I scream. I throw the trash can lid. It hits her in the back. She stumbles. It's all he needs. He moves, a blur of pained, precise motion. He's inside her guard. He grabs her wrist, the one with the knife. He doesn't punch, he doesn't hit, he twists. A lock, his body weight against the joint. There's a wet pop. Vera screams, a raw, agonizing sound. The knife clatters to the pavement. Cassian holds her, his arm locked around her, her wrist bent at an impossible angle. He's breathing like a bellows. He didn't kill her, he just ended the fight. Whistle? The shriek cuts through the air. Blinding headlights, a siren, Nira Sloan. She's standing by her car, hand in the air. BPD, drop your weapons. But she's not looking at Cassian. She's not looking at Vera. She's looking past us, at the stairwell door. Greaves, show your face, it's over. Malcolm Greaves steps out of the shadows. He's calm again. His suit is brushed off. He's smiling. Agent Sloan, he says, his voice booming. Excellent work. You've apprehended Kincaid and Morrow and... He spots me. Miss Park. With the evidence. How efficient. You've rounded up all my problem children in one place. I'll take them from here. He thinks he's won. He thinks Nira is still his. He thinks he's here to clean up the mess. Cassian doesn't move. He's still holding Vera, whose face is a mask of pained, silent fury. He looks at me. He doesn't nod. He doesn't speak. He just looks. It's your move. Lena, calibrate. I had made a call. From the stairwell. Not to the cops, to the independent bloggers, the ones who hate Greaves, the ones who hate Northlake. I gave them the address. I told them Greaves was here. And I hear them. The thunder of feet. They swarm out of the other stairwell, a dozen of them. Phones up, live streaming. He's here, I shout, my voice cracking. The bloggers surround us, their phone lights like 100 spotlights. Greaves freezes, his smile is gone. I step into the center. I pull the blue folder from my jacket. I hold it up. I hold up the single piece of paper. The original lie, the one from the bottom of the pile. Malcolm Greaves signed it, I scream, my voice echoing off the concrete. This is the order he signed the fabrication he buried my brother. It's his signature. The cameras flash. They zoom in. Greaves' face breaks. The political mask melts, revealing the cornered animal underneath. He's not a boss. He's not a politician. He's just a criminal. He lunges. He doesn't lunge at the cameras. He lunges at me, at the paper. Nira. For a split second, a single human instinct. She steps in his way, a block. Her arm comes up. He shoves her aside. I look at Vera. She's on the ground, holding her shattered wrist. She's looking at Greaves, at his rabid, desperate face, and she starts to laugh, a low, bitter, broken sound. She sees it. She was just a pawn, a piece of his data. Whoop, whoop, whoop. It's not a police siren. It's inside the building. The fire alarm. The one I triggered. But the voice over the PA is new. It's not a fire drill. Evacuate. Evacuate immediately. An explosive device has been detected in the sub-basement. This is not a drill. Someone, Greaves Vera, someone doesn't want any of this to survive. Someone just decided to burn the whole rotten chessboard to the ground. The alarm wasn't just a sound. It was a physical thing, a high-pitched, screaming whoop, whoop, whoop that vibrated in my bones. It was the sound I hated, the sound that meant the fire was already here. Smoke, thick and black, was pouring from the stairwell Greaves had used, the bloggers and reporters, who seconds ago had been a swarm of predators, were now just a herd of terrified people. They scattered, a chaos of shaky cameras and panicked shouts. "Lena, go," Cassian's voice. He grabbed me by my good arm, shoving me hard toward Nira Sloan. "The river exit, both of you go." He was pushing us, me and the Fed, toward the one clear path out of the garage, but he wasn't coming. He stopped. He turned, his face a mask of pained, intense concentration. He looked back at the smoke-filled doorway, and he started running back. Back toward the archive, back toward the fire, back toward the bomb. "No!" I screamed, pulling free from Nira's grip. "Cassian, where are you going?" He didn't stop. He was already at the stairwell door. "It's a pressure trigger," he yelled back, his voice already muffled by the concrete. "It's in the sub-basement tied to the building's regulators. It'll take the whole block." He knew the circuitry. He was going to stop it. He was going to disarm it, alone, with a bullet in his shoulder and a back that was one wrong move from seizing up completely. "Kid, don't be an idiot," Nira yelled at me, pulling at my jacket. "Let's go. He's a dead man." I looked at her. I looked at the exit. The one clear, easy, safe path to the street, the fire escape, the way out. And I thought about the first night in the diner, how I'd stood there, frozen, while a drunk man grabbed my wrist, how I'd waited for someone else to save me. I wasn't that girl anymore. I ripped my arm free from Nira's grasp. "I'm not leaving him." I ran. I ran back into the smoke, after him. "If you go, I'm going with you." I choked, my voice raw, the hot air already searing my lungs. I caught him at the landing. He spun, his face a mask of pure fury. "Lena, I gave you an order, get out." "I don't take your orders," I yelled, getting right in his face. The air was pulsing with heat. "You need 2 hands, your shoulder is shot. You're hurt, you need me." I held up my own hand. It was shaking, but I clenched it into a fist. "I'm the one with the steady hands. You said it yourself. I calibrate the chaos, so let me calibrate this." He stared at me for a single, infinite second. The building groaned around us, a deep, structural sound. He saw the ring on my finger. He saw my eyes. He saw the anchor. He didn't have time to argue. He nodded, a short, sharp gesture. "One condition." "What?" "You do exactly what I say. Every word, every step, no questions." "Fine." He shoved a small, rubber-handled pair of wire cutters into my good hand. "Don't drop these. Don't you dare drop them." The sub-basement was hell. It wasn't just smoke. A pipe had burst, and the air was thick. Wet steam that smelled like sulfur and ozone. The beep, beep, beep of the timer was loud now, echoing off the wet concrete. "In here," Cassian grunted, pulling me through a utility door. There it was. It wasn't a movie bomb with fancy tubes. It was ugly. A gray, putty-like block strapped with zip ties to the main building's pressure regulator, right next to a cluster of gas lines. A digital timer, stark and red, was taped to the wall. "It's a fail-safe," Cassian said, his eyes scanning the wiring. "Greaves wanted to burn the archives, but if he was caught, this blows the evidence of the archives. He's burning the whole board." The timer flashed, 00300029. "My hand," he said, holding up his right. It was shaking. Not from fear, from the agony in his shoulder, from the effort of just standing. "I can't. The angle is wrong. I can't hold it steady." He looked at me, his eyes clear and sharp. "Lena, you, now." My heart, which had been in my throat, suddenly settled. It became a cold, hard stone in my chest. "Tell me what to do." "Okay." His voice was low, right by my ear, calm, precise. "This is just like the diner. Lena, stop the source. The yellow wire is the pressure trigger. You touch it. We're vapor. Don't touch the yellow. 00200019. The green wire is the clamp. The white wire is the primary charge. You have to cut the charge after you clamp the loop." "Okay," I said. My voice wasn't shaking. "Take the small clamps from my belt," he ordered. "The copper ones. Clamp the green wire. Squeeze it until it clicks. Now." My hand, the one I'd seared on the file cabinet, was screaming. I ignored it. I grabbed the clamp. I found the green wire. I pushed the metal teeth around it. I squeezed. My whole body shook with the effort. Click. "It's on," I said. "Good." His voice was steady. "Now, the cutters, the white wire. Not the yellow, the white. 0011. I raised the cutters. My hand, the one holding them, started to tremble. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a deep, bone-shaking tremor. I couldn't hold it still. "Lena," his voice. "Breathe." I squeezed my eyes shut. "Breathe. Slow in," he whispered. "Slow out. Calibrate." I took one ragged breath. The shaking stopped. My hand was a rock. 0009. His hand, his good one, covered mine. He wasn't doing it for me. He was just steadying me. His strength. My hand, the anchor. "On my mark," he said. 3, 2, 0007. "Now." I squeezed. Snip. The red timer froze. The number 0006 glowed for a half second, then went dark. The beep, beep, beep was gone. The silence that fell was absolute, crushing. It was the silence I had always been afraid of, the silence after the alarm. But it wasn't empty. I was still breathing, in huge, gulping sobs. Cassian was still breathing, a rough, pained gasp. "Oh my God," I whispered. I started to laugh. It wasn't a sound of joy. It was a wild, hysterical, broken sound. My knees buckled. He caught me. His one good arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me away from the wall, pulling me against his chest. I buried my face in his jacket, my hands grabbing his shirt, clinging to him. I was shaking and laughing and crying all at once. He just held me. His chin rested on the top of my head, and I could feel his body trembling, not with fear, but with the brutal come-down from adrenaline and pain. "I've got you," he whispered into my hair. "I've got you." We stumbled out of the garage into the night. The rain had started. A fine, cold, Chicago mist that felt like needles on my hot skin. The scene was pure chaos. BIFE agents in heavy tactical gear were swarming the exits. The bloggers, having been pushed back, were filming from across the street. We saw Greaves. He was trying to slip through the cordon, trying to blend in with the panicked civilians. Then I saw Vera. She was sitting on the wet pavement by a pillar. Her broken wrist was cradled in her lap, her beautiful white coat stained with grime and blood. She looked up and saw Greaves, saw his pathetic, cowardly escape. "Running. Malcolm," she called out, her voice brittle. She was laughing, that same broken, bitter laugh from the garage. "It's a shame. You have no aesthetic." Greaves flinched but kept moving. He was almost at a car. "Agent Sloan," Vera yelled. Nira, her face a mask of stone, turned. She was holding her side where Greaves had shoved her. "I would never die for a man with such a cheap suit." Vera said it was her final judgment, her eulogy. "But I will bury him." She reached into her coat pocket with her good hand and threw something, not her knife, a slim, black, portable hard drive. It skittered across the wet pavement and stopped right at Naira's feet. "His black money accounts," Vera said, spitting. "All of them, the real ones, the ones that lead to his bosses. Happy hunting." Nira looked at the drive. She looked at Greaves. She looked at the flashing cameras, and she knew what she had to do. She picked up the hard drive. She walked over to the nearest blogger, the one with the biggest light, the one still streaming. She held the drive up to the camera. "Agent Naira Sloan, BIFE," she said, her voice ringing out, clear and strong. "I'm announcing an immediate investigation into Chief Prosecutor Malcolm Greaves." She wasn't running. She was pivoting. My personal error in judgment led me to trust a man who was running a shadow ledger. She was taking the hit, admitting personal fault to save the institution. This drive contains accounts that lead directly to him. The Bureau will not tolerate this corruption. It was brilliant. She was saving herself by feeding them her boss. The tactical team heard the name, Greaves Stop. He ran. They took him down. A brutal, efficient tackle, face first onto the wet street. It was over. I looked back at the pillar where Vera had been. She was gone, vanished into the chaos. The only thing left was her signature. A single, platinum-white dagger, stuck into a discarded Solace for Tomorrow pamphlet, a promise. I'll be back. We sat on the steps of a building across the street, watching the blue and red lights paint the mist. Cassian was just breathing. His eyes closed. His face was gray with pain. I took a clean napkin from my pocket. I dipped it in a small, clean puddle of rainwater on the step. "This is gonna sting," I whispered. I reached out and gently, so gently, wiped the grime and blood from the bullet graze on his shoulder. He winced, a sharp intake of breath, but he didn't pull away. "You could have taken the easy way," I said, my voice thick. "You could have stayed in that transport. You could have let Greaves win." He opened his eyes. He looked at me, the flashing lights reflecting in his dark pupils, "and let you have all the fun." A small, pained smile. "You only trust the hard way. Lena, I'm just trying to keep up." He stood, pulling me up with him. We were under an old stone awning, hidden from the lights. The rain was a silver curtain around us. He cupped my face, not with a grip, with a question. His thumbs traced my cheekbones, wiping away the soot and the tears. His good hand was gentle. "Lena," he whispered. He leaned in, his forehead pressing against mine. We kissed. It wasn't the desperate, surviving kiss from under the pier. It wasn't the slow, discovering kiss from the greenhouse. This was a choice. It was slow, and it was deep, and it was real. My hands, one burned and stinging, the other steady, went around his neck, his one good arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me tight, anchoring me. It was a kiss that said, "We survived." He pulled back, just an inch. He looked down at the heavy silver ring on my finger, glistening in the mist. "Still want this anchor?" he asked, his voice rough. I looked up at him. I smiled, a real smile. It was covered in rain. Yes. The aftermath wasn't clean. It was messy. Ethan was cleared publicly. Naira, making good on her deal, made him the star of her North Lake reform. He even got a formal, written apology from the city. I'd never seen one before. Tina got her diner back. The insurance paid out. The first thing she did was take the safety pin, the one Vera had left, and frame it. She hung it over the register, a badge of honor. Cassian, he didn't get off clean. He went to a public hearing. He walked in, no lawyer, just himself. He admitted to the satellite funds. He admitted to operating in the gray. And then he announced he was transferring his entire controlling interest in every gray company he owned shipping, logistics, finance, into a new citizen-run trust, the Canal Restoration Fund, his version of fixing the structure. And me, I went back to the diner. A few nights a week, I needed the noise, the clatter of plates, the smell of coffee, the normalcy. But during the day, I was at the canal, using the first deposits from Cassian's new fund, building a community kitchen. He rebuilt his garden. He got rid of the exotic, ornamental stuff. He just planted herbs, basil, mint, cherry tomatoes, the ingredients for what we called our after-the-storm pasta. I'm there now, in the greenhouse. It's night. The city is a quiet, glittering carpet below. I'm stirring the sauce. Cassian is at the counter, his sleeves rolled up, chopping basil. His back is still stiff, but he's healing. My phone buzzes on the counter. A text, unknown number. The serpents molt in spring, but they always grow new skin. Vera. I look at the message. I feel the old, familiar ice in my stomach, but it's duller now. I press the silence button. I turn the phone over. I walk over to Cassian. I lean my head against his good shoulder, breathing in the scent of basil and him. "Let spring handle it," I murmur. He stops chopping. His arm wraps around my waist, pulling me in. I can feel his heart, beating slow and steady. A new rhythm. Not frantic, not panicked. It's beating in time with mine. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'm curious, where in the world are you tuning in from? Let me know in the comments so we can connect. And if you enjoyed this ride, please consider subscribing to the channel, Mafia Boss Stories. Give this video a like and support us by pressing that hype button. It helps get this story out to more listeners just like you.